This roller coaster strips the flesh from their bones and shoots them at a bullseye.
And
comedy!
No, here's apparently.
That's high comedy, folks. Welcome back to Bad Movies Rule, the worst movie podcast ever recorded. And by the power invested in me by the county and city of Valkenheiser, I hereby sentence you all to listen to this episode about nothing but trouble.
Also known as Git
Get!
and Valkenheiser.
Yeah, well, I think I saw Aykroyd said he always just considers this movie to be called Valkenheiser, right?
It should have stayed that way.
Yeah. Studios.
Darn.
What do they know?
Counters.
Nothing.
There might not be a better example of a studio just destroying a movie than this one right here.
Yeah. And didn't they have Bonfire of the Vanities going too, which was also a bad movie?
Oh, yeah. Have you ever seen that one?
I have not.
Bomb City.
Bomb City, baby. Bomb City, USA. That's kind of what this city was like. Bomb City, USA.
That's true.
Pretty much.
Imagine living on top of like a stripped out coal mine. Is that essentially what
I
that
think
was?
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Coal and gas or something.
Pretty much the same as upstate New York.
Okay, so that was my first thing about this movie is it's almost like Dan Aykroyd woke up one day and wanted to make an anti-New Jersey propaganda film.
Yeah.
So actually, there is some history behind that.
Is there?
Yeah, so he was on, not to dive into this before the intros, but
That's all right, go ahead.
So he was on a road trip and actually got pulled over by a small town officer and was taken before a justice of the peace in the middle of the night.
That they do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like this. So
heard that
this
too.
was kind of sparked from his own personal.
Just like he ended up on a roller coaster?
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah, I think it was-
no bone crusher.
Well, he might have been on drugs or something.
He might have. Well, that's was it the 70s?
It was the 80s.
90s.
Okay.
80s, 90s.
When he got pulled over? All right.
I did hear, one of the things I saw was that he had a lot of dreams about this kind of stuff.
Well,
So it could fit with the theme or the feel of the movie.
half of it felt like a fever dream.
Yes, I was
And then if
thinking that too,
that was real.
Yeah.
Well, let's introduce the panel before we get too much further. So you already heard Mel Vandy straight out of the shoe store. Mel, how are you, sir?
Doing awesome.
Have you ever been pulled over in the middle of the night and dragged before Justice of the Peace?
Not pulled over.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay. All right. I don't want to know. Charles is with us again this morning.
I am.
Welcome
Excited to
back,
be here.
Charles.
Yes, I'm excited.
All right, good. I'm glad that you're excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited every time you're here. I'm excited. And the man, the myth, the legend, Ryan Mueller is also in the house with us today. Ryan, how are you, sir?
I am doing well. My robot jock training's going well.
Great. Crash and burn.
Crashing and burning, yeah. Emphasis on the burn.
That's good, man. You slapping those tubies around?
Yeah, they're not as tough as they look.
No, they're really not. They don't know anything either. That's the nice thing.
No, very dumb. Yes, they're very dumb.
Well, today you probably already figured this out. We're talking about Nothing But Trouble, that movie from 1991, directed by, written by, starring
And starring.
And starring.
Dan Aykroyd.
Dan
Yes.
Aykroyd.
Can we get applause for that, please?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Dan Aykroyd deserves applause.
We're going to get through the vitals really quick because it's mostly one guy here.
His only director film, right?
This is it.
Yeah.
And he didn't even want to direct it.
No, he tried to shop this around to different directors and nobody wanted to touch
Like
it.
big name directors like
Yes.
John Landis and
yeah.
John Hughes.
Ivan Reitman
Ivan
and
Reitman.
Nobody, he wasn't going to get it made unless he did it. And so it was a begrudging directorial
I wonder
debut.
if any point in that process trying to get a director and they all turned him down, he should have thought, maybe there's a reason why no one wants to direct this
There's
movie.
usually some sort of causality, yes.
You know what, though? There's, again, I don't want to dive into this too deep before the vitals here.
Jump
but,
in the shallow end here.
Okay.
Come on.
So
Don't go head first. So
Dan Aykroyd,
It's pretty
first of
shallow.
all, Dan's a genius.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one's going to argue that. Yeah.
So when you look at Dan's writing history, all the stuff he did for SNL and all of his kind of spin-offs and, Coneheads, whatever,
Yep.
Blues Brothers. So you look at that stuff, and it's usually way, way out there because Dan is like this really creative, weird guy.
or there's elements of it that are way out
Well,
there.
Yes.
well, look at Ghostbusters. The original Ghostbusters or Ghost Smashers was way out there, and it took the studio to kind of rein him in to create the genius.
And Harold Ramis.
And Harold Ramis was installed by the studio to help
to temper
bring that down.
Right. In this case, and this is kind of what I was saying, Jay, is this isn't a slam against Dan Aykroyd because, and this is what I was saying, Mel, is this isn't a slam against Aykroyd because I love Dan Aykroyd. But everybody has a misstep or two, okay? And in this case, this seemed like a perfect storm of unchecked ego. When you get a guy like Dan Aykroyd and there's nobody to buffer that, right? He's the writer, he's the director, he's the star. Even the producers were busy with a different movie, Bonfire of the Vanities, and there was no one around to say no to him. This is what you end up with.
Exactly. Nobody reeled him in, and so they couldn't tone down the weird.
Which is, I think, what you see with a lot of these vanity-type projects, right?
Except, I think I read that he took, like, every suggestion from the crew as well.
Because he didn't know how to say no to anybody.
Right. So I don't know if that's a pride issue on his part, more of just like, oh, that's great, let's do it. But he didn't have, like Mel saying, the guys to come in and say, maybe not.
This costs too much.
Right.
Yeah. We need a roller coaster. The cassette guys are all like, that's hilarious. Look at this guy.
They had a blast, I'm sure.
Oh, they did. Everything I read about all the cast and crew absolutely loved working on this movie except for one thing.
And it's usually the same guy that's a problem in every movie he ever. All right, let's just get, because we're going to who's starting it next, and that's Chevy Chase, right? Is that who we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every movie he's in, you can go read about what a dick he was on set to everybody.
He is, but I love the work he does.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, this is nothing to do like with the end product, because I like a lot of
on everything.
Right.
I like a lot of his films.
He's done a lot of painkillers.
Was he?
Yes, he was.
He had major issues with all the pratfalls and stuff. He hurt his back really badly. And
yeah, but not a pleasure to be around on set.
No.
And him and Demi Moore hated each other. And he says he only took the part. He says he hated the script from the get-go. But then he only took the part because Dan's a friend.
Right.
But then you hear on the other side saying that Chevy was forced on Dan.
yes.
Right? That Dan was going to play both parts. It was going to be him as the judge and as the banker.
Yeah.
Kind of like an Austin Powers kind of a Nutty Professor kind of a thing.
Right.
But that the studio made him take Chevy Chase. So, I don't know. Both sides tell a different story about that. Chevy presents it as he was like a magnanimous, like, oh, I will do this for you, my friend, even though it's garbage.
There's probably truth both of that.
It's somewhere in the middle,
At some point, the producer's looking at Dan going, you can't play every character.
He probably
We need to let some other people, and direct. We need to let some other people in the movie, too.
That's fair. As I said, the other people are Demi Moore, Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, and John Candy is also in this movie playing, again, more than one character.
And doing a phenomenal job at it.
Did a phenomenal job, but didn't have enough John Candy for me.
No.
So you have Candy, Aykroyd, Chase. They're obviously at the top, or even sort of maybe the apex or downside of their career. Where was Demi Moore in her ascendancy?
She was ascending. I mean, this
just
is
on her way up.
2 years. I mean, she'd already done St. Elmo's Fire by this point. She'd done, she was a known commodity. This is 2 years before A Few Good Men, when she started getting into like A-list projects and G.I. Jane. She was up for an Oscar, I think, for. And, Demi Moore is the thing that doesn't belong.
I was going to say, she doesn't do a lot of comedy.
One of these things isn't like the others.
One of these isn't like the other.
Like, okay, these people
in more ways than one of these things isn't like the other. I can say,
we expect all of these people to work together.
Right.
But what are you doing here?
how did she get cast in this?
Dan Aykroyd couldn't pull it off.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we couldn't get Chevy Chase and drag, so we'll go ahead and have Demi Moore come in.
Right. This is where it really gets sad. The budget of this movie is $40 million. That's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
I don't know how much they spent on junk cars and weird statues.
That's the first thing I had.
That was most of
where
it.
all of it went. I had to.
But the box office was $8 million on a $40 million budget.
Man, that's
Bomb City, as you said.
Again, bad timing.
Well, I'm sure they went up. If this was 1991, I mean, there was from 88 to 94 was just like a murderer's row of movies coming out those 6 years.
This was supposed to come out like Halloween time. This was supposed to be like a Halloween fun, like
Wasn't fun.
thriller.
Spooky.
And
Wasn't thrilling.
Wasn't a thriller, no.
well,
Definitely not.
unfortunately, that whole thing about reeling Dan in and reeling Dan's ideas into the mainstream. So it got reeled in August, September, October, right before it was supposed to be released. So it didn't release until February the next year.
right.
Oh.
And unfortunately, they cut a lot.
Oh, that I know, but yeah, tons of cuts.
Well,
And it was supposed to be a lot darker, and it was supposed to be a lot weirder.
Yeah.
I don't know how it could be weirder. Darker, I could understand.
Yeah, darker for sure.
Yeah, I think what you ended up with, I think you had Aykroyd who made this maybe more of a horror with comedic elements. Then they neutered all the horror stuff, tried to market it as a straight comedy, and it's just not.
Yeah.
And this is what you end up with.
Yes.
Right?
It's definitely a movie that's searching for its purpose or
Needs an
theme
identity.
or feelings
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
genre or something like that.
It's got a 5.0 right now on IMDb, right on the money, 5.0, 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a surprising 47% audience score, which is almost half the people out there like it. Who are those people?
We'll find out by the end.
You'll find out.
So here's something really
That says
interesting.
there's at least two of us in this room.
So I was on IMDb, of course, because I'm not smart enough to know any of this otherwise. But Roger Ebert hated this movie so much that he refused to write a review of it. And it says this on the show. He went on a show. I don't know what show it was.
He Clint Bushed it. He said, I'm not showing up.
He just walked out of the theater.
He watched it, but famously Ebert says that there were some when he went to see it in 1991, a weeknight showing, the theater was almost abandoned except for him, a few lone adults, and several teenagers who were making loud, rude comments at the screen. Ebert famously went over to the teens and asked them to be even louder so he didn't have to listen to the terrible movie.
Wow.
That is roast and a half right there.
Could you please speak up?
Yeah.
Instead of, could you please be quiet?
Yeah.
I'm trying to watch
Yeah,
this
please
movie.
give me a reason to be in this theater. Your rude comments are better than the film.
So his review of that, he's quoted as, "Scenes from a Mall was merely a bad movie, a disappointment. Whereas our next movie is truly horrendously awful. One of the most cheerless and unpleasant finds I've ever had at the movies, and I've been going for a very long time."
Yeah. He did, well, yeah, because he did the television review. He did it at the movies.
Right.
And destroyed it, but wouldn't write a printed one.
Right. Yeah. He destroyed it, unfortunately.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's what's not as unfortunate is the four of us get a chance to gather together and discuss it. And so at least there's that. And we also want to say thank you to everybody at home who's tuned in to Bad Movies Rule yet again to listen to us talk about nothing but trouble. Thank you guys that you're here. You're the reason that we do this. If you could do us a big favor, leave us a review on whatever podcast app you're using. If it allows for a review, every 5-star review we get helps us get pushed out to more people and get recommended by those apps to other people as they're listening to other podcasts. We could be the ones like, oh, you like this? How about a little bit of this? How about some Bad Movies Rule? So we would very much appreciate that. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, the best way to do it is through our email address, which we'll do occasionally a mailbag episode where we'll answer listeners' emails on the show. That is thisshowIstrash, all one word, thisshowIstrash@gmail.com. Lastly, if you'd like a more VIP experience, we have a Patreon where you can go to patreon.com/badmoviesrule. And for as little as $3 bunk beds a month.
Where's this show
Just
headed?
3 bunk beds a month.
Not sure I want to be a part of a show that needs bunk beds.
$3 a month.
Are we forming a
easy
cult
payments.
here?
3 easy payments of
right.
3 bunk beds.
We'll send you the bunk beds, and it's going to take 8 to 12 weeks for processing.
And they come flat packed. You have to put them together.
That's right. And Mel's face is on, but he throws in a free pair of shoes
There
from
you
the
go.
shoe store.
Hey, nice.
Yeah.
I might order some then. I need new shoes.
There you go. Real roundabout way to get new shoes.
It is. But hey,
For as little as $3 a month, there are other tiers, but you could get on there, hear some bonus episodes. You can vote on other episodes that we might be doing. Just a good way to get involved on a deeper level with the show and help us as we're moving into a new space soon.
Yes.
And obviously, there's ongoing expenses with that. And so we appreciate everybody that supports the show. And hope you enjoy the rest of this Nothing But Trouble.
I'm really excited about the new space.
Yeah, me too.
it's going to be awesome.
Me too. I know you got to run away today, but next time you're in, I'll walk you over there and show it to you. It's
awesome.
literally right around the corner from where we are.
Are we decorating it like Burt Gummer?
Yeah, yes,
We
of course.
definitely need to.
Yes,
All right.
of course. It's going to be just in case a giant sandworm breaks in. We go like, you broke into the wrong GD podcast studio.
We've got the one Mel Vandy wall
That's right.
just lined with hardware.
Perfect. We'll have guns on the opposite wall from that where we're sitting. How about we dive into this, guys? As I said before, just to set up the synopsis so the audience understands kind of the movie. Dan Aykroyd woke up one day and decided, I want to make an anti-New Jersey propaganda film. I don't know what's during his time in New York on Saturday Night Live or what it would, but basically that's what this is. And you said there's history behind it. I thought you were going to talk around the towns itself. I didn't know he had a run-in with a cops late at night that was similar to this.
It's what sparked his idea.
Yeah, I don't know. But what I wonder is, are there actual towns like this in northern New Jersey or, that area?
Well, the answer is no, because they used the set of High Noon. Okay. So that's why it looked like a Western town. And they had to figure out, how do we make it look less Western? Oh, we'll just paint road lines so it'll look like a modern town.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So there are towns like this. Just this is a obviously exaggerated for effect. You look at some of these impoverished mining towns and stuff in West Virginia. There's actually a coal mine fire or a natural gas fire or a peat fire. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
That's burning under this area between West Virginia, Pennsylvania area.
Yeah.
That has been burning for 50 years. The entire town it's toxic. It's not safe to live in, and it's just a bad place.
Remember The Simpsons? They had a tire fire, and then they had to relocate the whole town down the road. So.
Okay, see, The Simpsons predicted it.
They did.
This works. This is real.
So I knew. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and the thing about this town too, it's a small town. I'm like, this thing has the urban spread of Chicago, where they were pulling these people over.
Seriously, it was huge. I feel like I knew there were these type of towns in the Appalachians, like you said, West Virginia, Pennsylvania and stuff, but this seemed like it was in New Jersey because they're trying to go to Atlantic City, and it's right after they get out of New York. But I was surprised as I dug into this to know how many of these kind of burnt out coal towns there are. It's kind of sad.
How much digging did you do?
Not actual digging.
Strip mining.
Strip
Looking
mining.
for info for the show.
That's right. I was strip mining the internet. So the setup of the movie is this. Chevy Chase is apparently
Not a banker.
not a banker. He's
Not
just
a
a
banker.
rich douche and
Pretty much.
Financial advisor.
Financial writer.
Financial publisher.
Financial writer.
Thorn Weekly or something.
Yeah.
That's right. He gives investment advice.
Yes.
And Demi Moore is like kind of an earnest lawyer. It seems like we don't get a lot of backstory here.
She's mad at some
probably
guy she
cut all
works
that
for
out.
who we find out later maybe her boyfriend.
Right. And because all we see from a backstory standpoint is her argument on the phone with this guy.
Well, she steals Chevy Chase's paperwork,
Right.
which I'm like, why does he have it? And why is she just taking it? And why doesn't he care? And why does she give him espresso machine?
And a bag of crap.
Yeah.
Well, that's an even trade.
Yeah.
That's
Well, that's true, I guess.
Insider trading information
right.
for an espresso machine.
Because they mate on an elevator at his building where he lives. So
Mate?
this is the beginning. They mate? What did I say?
Mate.
No, they meet.
Oh, perfect.
I think eventually they probably made
Well,
that
maybe.
on screen.
But they meet in the elevator, and they decide essentially to drive to Atlantic City to confront her ex, right? I mean, there's a 10-minute prologue to the movie where they're at this party and just kind of setting the scene of like, oh, look how rich I am. Look at all my rich friends. And there's all these machinations of some kind of deal that she's working on as a lawyer, and it's all of it utterly meaningless.
My Brazilianaire friends.
That was awesome.
those-
Brazilianaire was one of my favorite lines. They're Brazilianaires.
Yes.
I'm like, wait, did he say Brazilian or
Yeah,
Brazilian?
I called them the walking telenovela.
All of this just a setup to get the four of them on the road.
Perfect.
It's Chevy Chase and Demi Moore on their way to Atlantic City to go confront her ex. Okay.
And Fausto and Ronaldo.
And Fausto and Ronaldo are these two Brazilianaires
Yes.
that he's friends with because he's their financial advisor.
Yes, and inexplicably, they're from Brazil, but they speak Spanish instead of Portuguese.
And the passport
Well, you
says
don't-
they're
Yes,
Argentinian.
Argentinian.
What do you mean this movie's not consistent?
So I suppose there's Spanish speakers in Brazil, but generally Portuguese is a lingua franca of.
but they're not from
Brazil.
Brazil. They're from Argentina.
Yeah, well, I guess that's true.
A little Portuguese has got some Spanish to it.
Those two, they're kind of eccentric billionaires.
I enjoyed their characters.
Thank God they came along with them. That's what I said.
Yes.
I was like, good
Well,
Lord.
they did create all the problem, though.
Yeah, they did.
You got a BMW. Drive it like you know how to drive or something like that.
They all head off, out of the city and down the road. And Chevy Chase, the only reason he's there in the car is because of Demi Moore's legs.
Yes. He thinks she's attractive.
Well, and what's attached to him too. I mean,
Well, sure, but I mean, he literally is like about to tell his driver when she comes down here, they're going to get in the car, tell her, I'm sorry, she can have the car or whatever.
Yeah.
Then Demi Moore comes out of the elevator.
Yeah. Do you know why that was so hot? Because she took off her glasses. If you notice, up to that point, she's smart girl, smart lady, smart woman, lawyer, and she's wearing glasses.
Yeah.
And she takes them off and is wearing a giant jacket and with a romper.
A giant power suit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
It was weird because it was a romper underneath. And she took her glasses off. It's like, wow, she's actually sexy because she doesn't have glasses.
Oh my gosh, she's got.
Yeah, give me the keys.
Yo, girl.
Sorry, boys.
Whoa, hey, put the glasses back
I'll
on,
make
Charles.
sure I leave my glasses on. so you guys
what are you
don't
trying to
have
do in
issues.
here?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do, man?
That's right.
I'm going to need a couple minutes.
I'll save that for home.
Man, I'm about to start a fire in the studio. Chevy Chase looked over. He's like, oh yeah, girl, you got 20/20 vision. What's up?
Yeah, did she wear contacts?
I don't know. Maybe.
She didn't have any glasses. She probably could have used them with all the stuff she had to go through.
But she comes in to the car. He changes his mind. He's like, all right, I'm
I'll
going.
take the keys.
And off they go.
So here's an interesting fact.
Yes.
The doorman is actually Aykroyd's
Yeah, it's brother.
brother and writer of this
Right?
film.
He helped him write it?
Helped him write it. And his father is apparently sitting on one of the porches.
Yep.
Which I looked for him, but I couldn't make out which one he would be because
They
none of
should
them
just-
seemed old enough.
They
but-
could have just called the movie Nothing But Aykroyds.
Yeah.
Well, when the
been
budget
perfect.
got run up, they had to make some concessions.
They had to tell their cousin, look, Frank, we got too many
Got too many
Aykroyds.
Aykroyds.
And Frank's getting, I'm always the last
I'm
Aykroyd.
always the last. I'm like Daniel Baldwin. Come on, let me in this movie.
Frank Aykroyd just missed his chance.
So did Alec turn down the role?
Or Steven or Billy
Steven or Billy?
any
Stop or my
other
Baldwin
one.
will shoot.
Yeah.
Any other one? All right, so they hit the road with their 1990s version of Google Maps.
Which I didn't even know that existed. I looked
neither.
that up. It was
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Yeah, so what I was able to find is that it's stored cartridges or maps on cartridges. But it uses what's called a dead reckoning system.
Yes.
Not
Breadcrumbs.
GPS.
Right.
So does anyone know what the hell that means? What is a dead reckoning system?
It's where you go, and if you make a left, it knows that you turn left. If you turn right, it feels the turns, and it knows that it's okay. So you were here. You move your cursor to the start, and as you're driving, it knows based on your time and basically distance. And then when you turn left, it knows that you made a left. Turn right, it knows you turn right. It's not using any satellite or anything like that.
No GPS at all, but it just seems like,
It sounds like a fantastic way to get lost.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that works well.
I was impressed with it though, because she was like showing. I'm like, I didn't know they had anything like that. But
1990, they were holding out on
that
us.
must
Only
have cost
were.
a fortune.
People are out there with maps and
Seriously.
markers trying to figure this out. And
Right.
we had this.
And that's really what it was.
I was printing MapQuest out on my
Yeah.
computer.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Just like,
Exactly.
remember that? You'd have like the stack of MapQuest things. Like, oh, hold on, I
You'd
got
have the
thing.
map and the 18 pages of turn-by-turn directions.
What I
Like
remember,
4.8 miles. Check it on your mile, your odometer.
what I remember was folding the map just right so you'd have it hand holdable, but you could
Yes.
still follow. And then you'd refold it. That was
Those
the
were the days,
glory
man.
days, man.
Those were
you
the
had
glory
a
days that
computer?
lasted for like 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, that was how they did it from roads to GPS.
It's true. It's true. All right, but anyway, so they're in the countryside. These two yahoos in the backseat, they want to see like, well, we want to see more of New Jersey. You know,
brought a
and,
pic.
said by nobody
Yeah.
Yeah.
ever.
Right, we want to see the countryside. Even Chevy Chase is like, this is New Jersey. What do you want to see at the countryside? It's all a bunch of stripped out wasteland, basically.
And then Demi Moore is like, oh, no, there's beautiful. You follow this river, go there. And then my immediate thought as they turn off the road was, no, it was exactly like Chevy Chase said. It was like bombed out towns, Depression era, people sitting
Yeah.
on porches looking sad and
right.
Even the dogs look sad.
Dogs,
I mean,
yeah.
the dogs look sad too.
burning pipes in the middle of the road. The Fausto's like,
Exhaust,
go out and
right?
kiss it. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is this guy, 12?
Let's go have a picnic.
This is kind of what kicks off the plot of the movie is as they're kind of rolling very slowly, like 5 miles an hour, it seems like, through this town, he rolls a right turn at a stop sign, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, he did the old California stop.
The old California stop. And a cop, who we don't know who that is yet, but, you know, flicks on his
Chief Constable.
lights, Chief Constable, and starts following. But it seems like he doesn't actually pull them over till like 4 miles later down the road.
Well, he tried to pull him over.
Well, he did, but they were in Hoboken by the time he pulled him over.
Right. Before he even got up behind him, they were well past
Well,
that
the town may not have been very big.
Maybe. It seemed like it was humongous.
Yes.
He had a lot of jurisdiction if that
Yeah.
wasn't the case.
That's right.
They were
Apparently,
all over.
Valkenheiser is a huge town.
That apparently goes all the way to Atlanta.
Well, we
City,
learned
I
later
know.
that Valkenheiser has quite a bit of
History.
pull and persuasion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Political
local
pull.
authorities,
Yeah, big time. Yeah, so these crackheads in the back seat are just like, you're rich. You don't have to stop for this cop. Gun it, right?
Yeah.
This is a BMW. Now, you drive a BMW.
I do.
Does that...
I thought about that when they were talking about Beamer drivers, and Chevy Chase is like the stereotypical Beamer driver, like a total jerk and doesn't care about anything. And although he didn't think his car was that great because the Fausto and Ronaldo had to egg him on to drive faster. He's like, "You got a Beamer? Drive it like a Beamer." And he's like, "Okay, I'll do it finally." And
Does yours do 140?
Yeah.
I think I've only gotten it to about 110.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it starts to redline then. Mine's a sports car. It's a roadster. It's supposed to go around corners, not a big luxury sedan.
Oh, my pickup will do 130.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just, it's old. Mine is a true vintage.
It's classic.
Demi Moore says, "Oh, it's a vintage BMW 733i." I looked that up. It was like 1984. I'm like, that's not even 10 years old, that car. Why is she calling it vintage?
How old's your car?
2000.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's 22 years
years,
old
yeah.
at this point. Okay. Yeah, at that point, it was only, they shot it in 1990.
Yeah,
it was
like
a 6-year-old.
6-year-old car.
Okay.
Well, it's vintage now.
Vintage, well, certainly now. It was a cool car, I thought.
Oh, yeah.
And
but
I
not
love
as
the
cool.
show and the dash and the lights
Yeah.
and the E-TAC thing. And
But it
all
wasn't
that.
as cool as the cop car. That thing had rocket boosters.
No.
And
he
that
was
thing
fast.
had rocket boosters. It had switches. to
Radio
make
switches.
gates. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, so at one point he flicks a switch and a roadblock emerges from the sides of the road and blocks the road remotely.
Yes.
So that he can't get away.
Well, this wasn't his first rodeo here.
no, it wasn't.
Is that why he had that giant antenna at the back of his car?
They all used to have that.
Right? The thing was huge. It's like folded down and across the whole thing. I was just amazed at what these guys in this like podunk town were
Yeah,
able
it's
to
true.
do. And so he basically forces the BMW, the cop, onto the side street.
Yes.
And now there's all these other trucks, and he's just kind of through the loudspeaker of the cop car saying,
This is dangerous.
please
Yeah,
stop.
it's
This
not
is
gonna work.
pull
Through a
over.
mining-
Not advised.
They're going through like a gravel pit or something.
Something.
One of the things I did appreciate about this scene was there was no asphalt squealing.
There was.
There wasn't.
So they actually, didn't have to add that part. And they were smart. So Dan Aykroyd is the director. I give him props for not doing asphalt in
What movie was that?
gravels. Like every movie has it.
It was one that we watched recently, though, where somebody squealed out on
probably
asphalt.
The Wraith.
It might have been The Wraith.
Yeah.
They squealed out on asphalt.
I think
Or
the
on dirt, you mean? Or
Yeah, dirt or
gravel.
whatever.
the car chase was well shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was all. That was all
It
fine.
was. It looked awesome. It was well done. I mean,
I enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it begs so many questions. Like how? It's like the most elaborate speed trap of all time, right?
Well, John Candy's highly capable.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
John
was John
Candy.
Ca-
We
it
find
was
out is
John
the cop.
Candy.
Yes.
Or what's
Yes.
his character name?
I don't even
Dennis.
know. Dennis. Thank you.
That's
Dennis. Yeah, it was hard to make it out because mostly Fausto said his name and I couldn't understand anything.
Right.
that guy
see,
said.
part of it's a foreshadowing though.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing is a fun house.
Yeah, but they just have too much control that seems not feasible. For instance, right after he chases them through the thing with the trucks, they come up to a 4-way intersection. They could have gone a number of 4 ways. They happen to turn right, and the girl cop happens to be sitting there with her gun on the hood of her car.
Obviously, you ain't
Like,
from around here.
What if they had gone any one of the other ways they could have, you know what I mean?
She probably would have been there too.
She just would have been. That's what I'm saying. These people are omnipresent. I think they're demons.
It could be.
Could be.
I don't think they're human people.
They come from a burning fire land.
Or they're just inbred.
Dante's Inferno is under their house in the town, so
They're inbred and it is bestowed upon them superpowers unnaturally.
I mean, it
They
is New
carried
Jersey.
serious- They carried serious firepower. That the lady cop
Absolutely.
had a rifle or automatic rifle, and Chevy Chase. I mean,
their weaponry was
John Candy.
ridiculous.
Dennis had like I don't know what that gun was.
Well,
but
the
it was impressive.
cops won't be swayed. He tries to buy his way out of the ticket. Like you said, Mel, like with Dan Aykroyd's experience, he ends up getting pulled. Like he won't be swayed by the buy-off attempts. He's got to be pulled in front of the justice of the peace immediately. So he's like, you got to follow me to this place. And as they're driving through the town, or to this place, a freaking drawbridge comes up behind them. So like they're telling you right away, they're trapped.
They're in trouble.
Yep.
So, enjoy your stay.
So, yeah, it was
On the
nice.
back of the drawbridge.
So it isn't just to the piece. This was interesting because he says you got to go before the reeve, and I'm like,
Right.
what the heck is a reeve?
Yeah.
And then they're driving. They saw Shire Reeve, and
Yep.
I thought that was very clever and interesting and pretty well written. The idea of this whole reeve thing. So I had to look at what a reeve is. It is from like pre Magna Carta, as Demi Moore's character said when she was standing before the judge. But a reeve was officially position which is in Saxon times, something like 700 or so, when the reeve was empowered to hold court and try local civil and criminal matters. And so it became sheriff. Shire Reeve evolved into sheriff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he actually had, like, according to their law, because they were still a reeve somehow.
Yeah.
Or they worked under this pre-Magna Carta charter thing.
Which Demi Moore calls out at one point.
He
right?
has complete authority to do whatever he wants, basically, because he's like the Lord Master of this estate. Or
Well, you
this
know what
town,
wasn't
county.
interesting at all was any of the dialogue in the movie. Because as they're driving off, Chevy Chase goes, "Oh, that's where they buried Flipper." And he's like, "Flipper's dead."
Flipper's dead.
Like, what
That
is
was
that supposed to
funny.
be a joke?
Yeah, that was funny.
Why?
It's a Chevy
About
Chase
Flipper?
joke.
Because Fausto's like 12, but he's really 27 and he
right.
doesn't know what's
No,
going on.
guys,
'Cause he's
that
a
was-
Brazilian heir.
The whole none of the one-liners work in this movie.
Oh, you're wrong.
No,
Some of them
no.
are
They
awesome.
have to work.
Some of them are
How-
so
okay.
good.
You're gonna sit here and defend
Yes.
the Flipper line?
Maybe not Flipper, but
Not the Flipper.
Hawaiian
No.
Punch.
But pulling through the town, he's got those impoverished people on the thing, and he's telling them, sell or buy gold, sell oil.
Yeah.
I mean that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
I didn't laugh once.
You don't have to.
I laughed several times.
I do have to if it's supposed to be a comedy.
But see, it wasn't.
then I have to laugh.
I laughed when Chevy Chase comes down the elevator and he's like hungover and he drops his bag. I just thought that was hilarious. I'm like laughing at Chevy Chase.
Wow, you
just
guys are
being who
easy
he is.
marks then, because like, what's
Well,
funny
the
about
couple
that?
of times they let John Candy talk, he had a couple.
Oh man, it was
I mean,
so good.
Which is that's his whole shtick, and he didn't have enough of it in there.
I thought this movie was a modern miracle. I was like, it's a miracle that you're able to make an entire comedy without one line that works in the entire thing, not one. But I'm amazed to find out that you guys actually enjoyed some of these one-liners.
I disagree, sir.
Well,
enjoyed a lot of
please,
these
as we go through this, tell me the one-liners that work. Regale me with, I want to be proven wrong. So please, when we get there, I want you guys to show me.
Let me find my 40
Okay.
pages of.
Find your top 70 quotes.
Yes.
From Nothing But Trouble. Please. I would rather have a homeless person with a nervous condition shave my backside with a sharp knife than watch this movie ever again.
Well,
Okay.
I guess we don't got to wait to the end to find out what you thought of this one.
This is the biggest pile of crap we've ever had to sit and review. All right, so they
That's
go
not
to the
fair.
court.
I've been on some that are worse.
I can see. Here's half our audience turning it off.
All right, I'm just kidding.
Here's a
Garbage
good
Pail
one.
Kids was worse.
Fausto, when he gets up to leave, well, we're not there yet. You people are sick, wicked, funky, misanthropic, codependent animals. I won't have my sister, who was once the queen of the Mardi Gras, sitting at a table with pickle shooting train. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Okay.
Brazilianaires itself is awesome. They're Brazilianaires. They have breakfast at 2 p.m.
Okay.
So I'm still waiting for the punchline.
Ebert did say that there were about 4 laughs in this film, and the
All right.
4 laughs in 108 minutes was not worth it. But
Yeah.
Remind me when we get to the end to give you one of the best quotes of the
All right, I will remind you.
And I like, you've got a BMW, act like it. That was good.
Yeah,
That was a great line.
that's just something people say to people. That's not a funny line.
About the Hawaiian Punch. Thank you, Judge. You know, there's nothing better at the end of a long day on the road than a nice warm glass of Hawaiian Punch.
Yeah.
Poured
And it's
from
just
an
Chevy's-
oil. Poured
Yeah.
from an oil can. And I had no idea Hawaiian Punch came in a can to begin with.
Oh,
a tin
sure.
Can
Yeah.
that was already liquid.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
All right, so they go to court. They come into the building, and it's literally, well, it looks like a house, okay? And it is actually where the judge lives. But there's also kind of a courtroom. Everything is cluttered. Every room in the house is cluttered with all kinds of things, like a hoarder, half hoarder.
It's unbelievable the amount of stuff.
Yeah.
He says, I want my phone call. He's like, that'd be fine, but we don't have a phone.
That was funny.
They don't have their car. It's been impounded. And like you said, it's kind of a fun house, right?
yeah.
So you're getting the sense immediately that there's no way to get out of here, and you're at the mercy of this judge,
Yes.
who we still haven't seen, but this is when he finally comes out. He comes down via this elevator.
No, he comes up.
He comes up in this one?
Yeah.
Okay, he comes up from the floor.
That weird music
up and
starts.
Oh, that's right. And all the badges turn around.
Yeah,
Yep.
and apparently that was his own collection of badges.
Yes, Dan Aykroyd's
Okay.
badges.
The desk moves out, and then his chair comes up, and you don't see his face at first.
No, until he stands up and screams at them because they're not
Yes.
taking this seriously.
Yes.
You know what, though? There was something really cool there, and I don't know if you guys caught it, with John Candy's Dennis right then and there. You could see that he's done this hundreds of times, and he was annoyed with the system, but he played it completely straight and was awesome. He was respectful, he was firm but fair. You know, he presented the case with recommendations, and you could just tell he was tired of this whole process. You know,
Right.
I recommend, fine, bond, release.
Right, but the judge wasn't having any of it because as soon as he was looking at their IDs, which they collected everyone's IDs, and asked him what he did, he pegged him as a banker immediately, right? He's like,
Right.
Banker? And he's like, financial, right? He's like, banker. Okay, right? Like, just dismisses him. And we find out later that he never lets bankers go.
He doesn't
Right.
like bankers.
Well, the bankers destroyed his
Destroyed
family.
his family.
Right, exactly.
Reasonable.
The guy's name is
writing.
Judge Alvin J.P. Valkenheimer. And the first time we see him, and this is... Let's talk about how you felt about Dan Aykroyd's performance as the judge. And I have a feeling that I know how two of you are going to talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. But if you loved it, tell me why. Because I just thought, again, from someone who loves Dan Aykroyd, that it was forced, it was over the top, it wasn't funny, not even a little bit. And the first time he jumps up and he's like, hula, 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 I'm just like, what is this? What are we doing?
That part was a little weird, but he was a weird, eccentric dude.
Yeah.
I get that.
Power corrupts,
I get that.
and he was over the top.
This was a caricature of the modern American legal system and its problems.
Oh wow, that's pretty deep.
So this judge, who is extremely old because he fought in WW1.
Yeah.
I thought he was more like David Lopan, man. He rolled up
Would they pick him as like 106, I
at
think,
least,
or something like that?
But he's been there forever. He's in a seat that gets continually passed down in his family.
It's true.
Just like American politics, American power. And you look at the fact that he is
Or Saxon power in this case.
correct. He's able to decide the fate of people's lives over trivial little things.
Yeah.
And this comes up a lot if you look at it when you take your wealthy person out of the New York City bubble who thinks he can do whatever he wants, and then you take him to the real world.
No, I get the function of his character. I'm talking specifically about how Aykroyd played it.
He did well.
I
He was a
liked this
disgusting old.
He was
Right.
gross and weird, and
Yes.
and he totally leaned into that thing, and then farther, and the chair fell over. But it was still fun to watch.
Well, that's what and I know if I just had a hard time separating the fact that from Aykroyd, the fact that he was responsible for all of this from the character itself, but it seemed like every decision he made was how can I be more disgusting? Not necessarily how can I be more funny.
He just kept adding on to it. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And at first, it wasn't supposed to be a comedy anyway.
Right.
It was supposed to be something maybe kind of fun, but kind of disgusting at the same time because it was supposed to be kind of like maybe a horror spoof, maybe. But
Right. And so what ends up happening is your level of enjoyment of his character or the movie in general is going to be directly proportional to how much you enjoy gross out, disgusting things. And if you don't,
yeah.
that's fair to say.
it is.
Right. And to me, every time they just leaned into that, I'm like, why are we doing this? This isn't funny. It's not adding anything to it. It's just gross.
Well, it's all in how you cut it. Did you ever see that Shining cut where somebody turned it into like a family movie?
Yeah.
If you cut down The Shining, you could make it into a wholehearted film,
That'd be interesting to see. Chevy loses it in the middle of this proceeding. They're ultimately dropped through a trap door into a room full of squeaky toys.
Squeaky toys.
And everybody gets mad at Chevy like it's his fault. Even the Brazilianaires.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, now you're going to turn on
But
me. You're
they're
the
the
ones who are egging me on."
Right, exactly.
I thought it was highly unlikely that an attorney would be supportive of him running away from the police.
Yeah, right?
That I told my wife that when we were watching, going, I don't think she'd be like egging that on. She'd be like, no, we need to stop.
She could be disbarred for it, too.
Yeah,
Right.
Seriously. I mean, she wasn't driver, but yeah.
Aykroyd should have been disbarred from making another movie ever again after this.
Oh, come on.
He kind of was.
You got to watch it again, James. I think you like it the second time better.
All right, while we cut away from them while they're in the squeaky toy room, Mr. Baldwin is pulled over. It was Daniel Baldwin, right?
Yeah.
Immediately my wife's like, is that Billy Baldwin? I'm like, no. She's like, is it Steven? I'm like, no. She could tell it was a Baldwin.
It's the one they can afford.
Yeah.
You could tell.
They could afford.
It's unquestionable. It's a Baldwin. Just nobody knows which one it is. This is the Frank Aykroyd of Baldwins. Okay.
That's right.
Yep.
And he gets pulled over with these other three, and they're just like literally, it's like so exaggerated.
Yes.
The cops will up there trying to like do as many drugs as they can in the car while the cops are pulling them over, just so it's clear to everybody.
They're bad guys. They're drinking their drugs.
What's happening?
They're super guilty.
Right. Which is something that John mentions when the last group was in front of the judge, like they didn't have any drugs or
Yes,
alcohol or
mention
anything. So this must be something specifically
So
that.
can I just point out you've
hates.
noticed several things that recommend that there's some good writing going on in this film. There's consistency between what's happening, and there's foreshadows that pay off. It goes places.
That's not in question compared to a lot of the movies that we've done, like Remo Williams or Jim Cotta or any where we're just like, this means nothing or this doesn't connect to anything. That's not in question. The bones, the structure of the script are good because this is somebody that's done this many times and knows at least how to structure something correctly.
Yeah.
But the execution of it is what fails completely, 100%.
Well, I got spread a little thin. Actually put him in the hospital.
Oh, yeah, I know, and that I can relate to. Okay, he went into the hospital. I read about this because he was so overcome with stress. The stress of being in it, directing it, the whole thing got to him so badly they ended up in the hospital.
Wearing some of the worst costume makeup that you'd ever have to wear.
Right. All
while
that on
trying
top
to
of it.
direct.
Yeah.
And he is, I'm not trying to say what I've done is anywhere near on the level of being responsible for a $40 million production with budget overruns and everybody coming to you and all that stuff.
And
It was
having to
pretty
work with
close,
Chevy
though.
Chase.
But when I just directed this show this last summer,
Did you have a Chevy Chase, by the way?
I did not have a Chevy Chase.
You didn't have any Baldwins either.
But it was by far the most stressful thing I'd ever done. And there was a period of about 2 weeks as we were leading up to the show starting.
I was actually legitimately concerned for you.
Were you?
Yeah.
I was like, I think James might die.
I
Or just
felt,
crawl up in a ball on the floor here.
I felt, and I'm not exaggerating, I felt like I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown.
I told my wife that that's the most anxious and nervous I've ever seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm never doing that again.
I'm glad you're doing better, by the way.
Thank you. I am doing 100% better.
I was praying for you.
I appreciate that. I will never do it again.
Yeah.
So I get he was under a lot of stress. Okay. But the end product is still what the end product is. And that's what you do when you make a piece of art is regardless of the circumstances, and we do take that into account to a certain extent, you ultimately have to be judged on what you put out there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Well,
so
and maybe
again, it's
that
nothing
stress-
against him personally.
Maybe that stress manifested itself in his performance as the judge, right?
Right.
It was his outlet. He had to get it out, so let's just make it more
Could
and more
be.
over the top.
So let's get back to to Mr. Daniel Baldwin. They're pulled before the judge, and they're literally like just short of like smoking crack in front of him, essentially, right? Still,
I love the big bag of Coke.
Yeah, seriously.
the thing looked like a hefty bag. You're like, yeah, you got your cocaine here, and your
pills,
crack and your pills,
Your,
and he's like,
your guns.
The Brazilianaires would have gone through that in like a night, but
right? They should have searched her. They probably would have found just as much. But what happens is they got this like I don't know, pick and save grocery store conveyor belt that like he flicks a switch and it shifts them out through the side door in the room, which was to me the easiest thing ever to escape
you
from.
skipped all the guns and knuckle dusters, they think they call it, and all kinds of weapons and drugs. It's like, come on, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Who are these people?
That's what I'm saying.
And he pulls a gun on John Candy, but
Oh, yeah, we missed that.
Dennis
Oh,
has got that giant.
We only
he's like,
have so
Uzi.
much time, to talk
That
about
was awesome.
every little thing that happens.
So they're guilty. They're convicted.
Yes.
He shoots them out the side door on the conveyor belt.
right. The super easy to escape conveyor belt.
Yes.
Into the most awesome form
Yes.
The
Awesome.
roller coaster to hell.
Bonestripper. With heavy
roller
metal
coaster.
music. It was
The
awesome.
theme song.
Yeah. Bonestripper.
I'm gonna sit back and let you guys celebrate
And he goes,
this incredible
they're like,
movie.
what's this? What's happening? And a Bonestripper. And they spent a lot of money on this roller coaster, but literally it was like 2 turns.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well,
Well, that was $10 million in the
Yeah.
budget right there. Is that roller
Why
coaster?
didn't, they
That's
just
right.
why didn't they just go to Midway people to come to Burlington and do and get one of those because they don't seem like they'd be that expensive.
That's right.
They didn't want to actually kill the actors.
Oh, come on.
This roller coaster
Would
strips.
anyone have missed Daniel Baldwin?
I'm assuming that's what he died in that roller coaster. I haven't seen him
yeah,
since.
that's true.
But this roller coaster strips the flesh from their bones and shoots him at a bullseye.
And-
Comedy.
No, here's the thing. It apparently
That's high comedy, folks.
apparently drug addicts and bad guys don't have any flesh or blood because the bone stripper was completely as clean as before they went
Well,
to it.
they had
And
the
all that
sprayer.
came out was the other side.
They had it
was
washed.
bones.
There was a washer.
Was
Did
there a
you see it
washer?
yeah, when they went through, there was water.
I
They
would-
went through the
I
washer.
That's
thought
an
the same.
impressive
Yeah.
washer.
I thought
was
the same
super-
thing
yeah,
you did.
it's
Yeah.
washing.
And I'm also looking at that. They look like pistons that have been sharpened. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't think that would accomplish what that
Well,
bone
when you
crusher
are in
does.
a junkyard, that's you got to work with something,
true.
and that's it.
Yes.
So
I like that part too. They were creating out of stuff they had. It was
All
like
right.
the old
Yeah,
Junkyard
right,
Wars
right.
show. That
What do
was
you
really
have?
awesome.
Okay.
This is a moment in the movie. I think it's at least we can illuminate this point that I will give a prop to the movie. Okay, in that this was pretty morbid
Yes.
for a comedy.
Yes.
Whether it was supposed to be or not, that's ultimately what it became. Right.
It changes dramatically at that point.
It's
Right.
yes, and there
realize-
is something. There is a general atmosphere of unease throughout this entire movie, and it's an uncomfortable viewing experience. Not because it's bad, right? Like, oh, I'm uncomfortable because it's a bad movie, but just the tone of the movie grants this kind of uncomfortableness in the air.
Right.
And the movie itself is fascinating.
Yes.
absolutely.
More so than other bad movies where even though I'm like not enjoying myself or thinking it's funny, I'm fascinated by what's happening enough to want to watch it to see what's
Right.
going to happen. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yep.
And so he at least created this really weird that I don't think I've experienced in any other movie that I've seen. This just general feeling of unease as I'm watching it because it's pretty morbid stuff.
It's morbid, yeah.
And you're almost like trapped in a nightmare. Like there's, remember the droopy dog? I don't know what his name was. Maybe his name was Droopy. There was like a cartoon dog.
Cartoon, yeah, Droopy Dog.
Yeah. There was a cartoon that I remember when I was a kid where he was like in this hotel and he could never get out of it. This guy, and I don't know, and Droopy was like the elevator operator in it or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And like no matter where he went to, he would always they're like, I want to go to the lobby and escape, but he'd go to the lobby through the door and he'd come up in another room and he was still in the hotel.
Right.
And no matter where he took him on the elevator or out door, he never could get out.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out when I was a kid.
Oh, interesting.
And this seems a lot. I mean, it's not literally like that, but just like no matter what they do, they cannot get
Can't
out
get
of
It was
this
kind of
place.
like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that props to them for doing that at least.
And when those guys die, you realize, there could be some true peril here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
just weirdness and whatever.
All right. So we're going to jump to the supper scene, which is the next time we see our heroes, they've been brought out of the squeaky toy room and brought to supper. Oh, they're allowing us to have dinner with them. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
And you can see some of the $40 million they blew on this movie with the elevator that lowers
Yes.
the judge in to the dinner hall and the train that comes up through the
Train's
table.
awesome.
It's
It was,
great.
that
No, it's-
train was awesome.
Why
that's great.
Yeah. Okay.
But at what expense?
$32,000 for the train.
The expense
Yo.
of the meal was what are those things? The celery with peanut butter and raisins.
Oh, raisins.
And
Ants
hot
on a log.
dogs.
The meal
Ants
costs
on a
about
log.
$10.
And why did Demi Moore act like she'd never seen celery before?
Yeah, she
She's
was like,
what
"What
do
is
I move
this?
this thing? It's so big, and it's how do I do it? This is how I'm supposed to act.
Peasant food. She isn't
Peasant
a
food, that's
peasant.
true.
She's
That's true.
used to caviar and
Caviar
escargot.
and escargot, but
It's on a log. What's this?
yeah.
When we say that John Candy in the movies we've had him on this podcast, his favorite thing to do is dress in drag. I think he's been in drag both times. We've talked about a John Candy movie on this show.
Armed and Dangerous,
Armed and
yes.
Dangerous. And this movie, supposedly,
He does it so well.
I guess he must really enjoy it, which is fine if that's what you're into. This is the time that John Candy comes down and we find out he's got this other granddaughter
Yes.
called, what's her name?
Aldona.
Aldona, thank you. I said Elvira, that's not right. Aldona comes down and she's there with the male John Candy. The cop is there, and they have this one moment of interaction. But for the most part, when one is there, the other's not.
Right.
Okay. But we find out that a little bit about the judge's backstory. He talks about how a banker screwed his father over this deal. This is the reason this is a stripped out coal mine underneath us, is because of a banker, and that's why I never let people go. And then the food is served. And I am with these disgusting hot dogs. The grossest hot dogs you've ever seen.
I
in your
did
life.
put that in my notes. They are the grossest hot dogs.
They were the nastiest hot dogs.
I
I've
am
ever seen.
100% convinced that those hot dogs were Daniel Baldwin and his friends.
Absolutely. They have got to be people.
Where the flesh goes.
We're having dogs?
Okay.
No, it's hot
Those
dogs.
are people dogs.
Those are
said they
intestines,
were-
yeah.
Well, they tested. He said they were. I think he said they were from cow beef, Hereford.
No.
They were pure beef. They're like Hebrew National.
No way.
Or Nathan's all beef.
Those are people dogs.
That's before they made the casings on hot dogs more safe, so you don't choke on them.
Each one of those hot dogs has a name. Okay.
It's OSCAR.
One of them was called Oscar, but not because of the reason you think.
My bologna has a second name. It's BALDLWAN.
I love too
Seriously.
that he eating it on a white bread. That was so awesome. That's like the
That's the old
definition
school
of
way.
That's like- that's like
bored,
the-
man. I need to.
This
eat
is
a
like
hot
the most
dog.
5-year-old meal ever. I mean,
Oh, it was
Right.
great.
hot dog on white bread with.
I'm also convinced Aykroyd spent 47 minutes in the writing room talking about the hot dog.
Oh,
All
yeah,
right,
he had
here's
to.
what we're
Yeah.
going to do. Because they spent so much time and focused every shot,
Yes.
making it more
And
disgusting.
it's all wobbly. And
Right.
He's like, putting it into his mouth. It was terrible.
Apparently, it had like shrimp salad on it too.
Ugh.
And I love the condiment train. That was so cool. I like bringing props. I didn't have time because everything
Yes.
else going on in my life. But I actually have that train car that had the mustard part.
Oh, really?
It doesn't have the mustard on top, but it's from an old Lionel set. I think I might even have a couple of the other condiment cars.
I smell a reenactment coming.
Yeah,
I think
there you
that's
go.
what we have to
Yeah.
do. All right. Eventually,
And the pickle shooting, I know you love that part.
oh, that was awful. I had trauma, secondhand trauma.
All
you
she
and
had to
Fausto.
I would have.
I'm getting out of the pickles too much.
That's what I
Throwing
would have
pickles
done.
at people.
Yeah. So what happens is, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say all she had to do was open her mouth. It wouldn't have hit her in the nose then. And they wouldn't
I'd
have
rather-
to get mad.
A nose or death before in the mouth. Okay. Honestly.
And I love how the judge is so like, I'm going to flick a pickle at you.
This is what I would have done. Exactly what Fausto and them do. They basically snap. The rich people jump up from the table. They run and jump out the window. All while Miss Perda, the other female cop, is shooting at them with an assault rifle.
Yeah.
But they're able to dodge all the bullets and swim over a moat and actually escape the compound because they find a sympathetic John Candy
Yes.
on the other side of the moat.
There's a good line there that
What's
comes
that?
back. He says, this smells like Sao Paulo.
You know what? I take it back. There is one line in the entire movie that made me laugh.
Yeah.
And it was a chuckle, but I laughed. When Fausto was trying to convince John Candy, he's like, you need a break, man.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
down, right? And then at the end he goes, come on, fish tacos.
I know. I thought that was funny too.
I'm like, that was the thing that pushed him over the edge.
That's so great.
Fish
I thought
tacos.
that was funny too.
Was it there when he said, "Yeah, I've worked for the Reeve since I was 8. I get free room and board."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since 8, he's been pulling people over and assaulting them, I guess.
I guess.
But he's not part of the family?
No, I don't
That's what
think
I'm saying.
Dennis is.
Yeah. Because his granddaughter looks
But
just like him.
He
I
is
think he
because the
Some way.
granddaughter is his cousin.
Okay.
Okay.
Because he calls her his cousin.
Then why would he say he works for them? I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
you can work for
you
him,
can
too.
work for a
Right,
family,
yeah,
I
I
suppose.
Yeah.
I know, but just he seemed like the way he said it. Like
But one, he was supposed to take over too,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he made mention of that. Like, you're the next in line, but you won't be if you don't,
Shape
knock
up.
it off. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Chevy Chase and Demi Moore try to also get away at the same time, but they're not successful in
These are
getting
great
away.
Chevy Chase lines here.
Yeah. Tell me, please.
So, Aldona, who's large and muscular, goes and grabs Demi Moore. Mm-hmm. And Chevy Chase says, take your hands off her. And then Aldona grabs him too and grabs them both and he says, that's more like it. And then as they're walking upstairs, where do you work out? Those are so classic Chevy Chase
It's
lines.
Chevy Chase.
And the way
That's all
he
it is.
delivers it is so great. It's so funny.
It's inexplicable to me how Chevy Chase, whose whole career is built on deadpan lines like
Yes.
that, delivered with almost
Yes.
no emotion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yet it seems, so it would be hard to tell because that's his style when he's phoning it in. And yet here, it's even possible, he's still capable of going even less than he normally does.
He's still funny.
And he phoned every line, every scene, and he did not want to be there.
That's more like it.
And you could tell. You could tell every time he opened his mouth.
He was more deadpan than usual.
Even more, if it was possible, even more.
I don't know.
That was a great line.
All right, so Demi and Chevy get stuffed into a bedroom, and this is where they start to kind of flirt and kiss, and every time it happened, I just kept yelling, no!
The kiss talking was amazing.
Yeah.
No, go! They were
Kiss
so
talk,
gross
kiss talk.
together. There was a 20-year age gap between the two of them.
Yeah.
He was 47 and she was 28.
Yeah.
Well,
19 years.
Good for him.
I mean, didn't we just learn that was true of...
He could be her dad.
DiCaprio does that. Doesn't
Now he
like
can be
young
her
women?
daddy.
That's also gross.
Yes.
Mel. Bro, the chemistry, you could tell they hated each other, I felt.
Oh, yeah, you could tell there wasn't much chemistry there. You could tell they didn't really like each other.
She was waiting for Ashton Kutcher, who was 20 years her senior.
I know, and that also was gross.
Maybe this is what sparked that for her.
Could have been.
At least all my weird girlfriends in the past, they weren't weird. At least all my girlfriends in the past were close to my age.
That's true.
Well, we were 10.
Well, when you were in middle school,
Yeah.
and if you were dating somebody 20 years, that would be
That'd be bad.
That would be bad.
That'd be real
Right.
bad.
Yeah.
You'd either be
You don't want to do that.
person negatively years old that doesn't exist yet.
Yes.
Your girlfriend from Canada you used to tell people about.
Canada. I don't know.
Right.
Anybody from
Your fake girlfriend from Canada.
fake girlfriend?
Everybody at some point is
Everybody
like,
had
she was
a
from
fake girlfriend
Indiana,
from
I think.
Canada.
I
Yours
didn't
was
even,
from
I didn't even
Indiana,
have
Mel?
enough game to have fake girlfriends.
You'd be like, oh, you wouldn't know her. She lives in Canada. You wouldn't know who she is.
I didn't even think about doing that. I was such a loser and so much. I had so much insecurities. I wouldn't even think. Not even a fake girlfriend would want me.
Even your fake girlfriend from Canada dumped
no,
you? That's
she didn't. Wouldn't want a Canadian anyway. She'd have
I
to be
tried to get this
French
fake
or
girl from
British.
Canada's number, and she said no.
Yeah, no.
She can't come to a dance with me.
No,
She's busy in Canada.
She's busy in Canada. All right, so the door opens, and the hallway tries to...
You missed it.
Whoa, what'd I miss?
When they're done with their makeout session,
Yeah.
she jumps on the bed and says the thing.
She
What
does.
did
She
she say?
says
She
the
says the
thing.
thing.
She says the title
movie
of the
title.
movie.
She said the thing, and I
said
missed
the
it.
thing.
She
You missed
said
it.
the thing.
You're nothing but trouble.
You're nothing but trouble.
That's for me. That wah-wah's for me. That was an epic fail on my part.
That
I
is.
always look out for the
You
thing.
always look
I
out for the
said it.
thing.
She jumped
said
on the
the
bed
thing.
and said the thing?
Yes.
She did a flying leap off the top rope onto the bed and said the thing.
Yep.
She said nothing but
I
trouble.
said that exact thing to my wife. I said, she said the thing.
Oh,
I
dang
can't
it.
do this. You're nothing but trouble.
Oh,
Yep.
my gosh.
That was
All right,
awesome.
my bad.
So you know it's a good movie when they say the title.
That is, I would have been the second time I laughed. So but they do go out the hallway, and the hallway, the edge of it starts to push down the
I love
hallway,
the bed spinning
trying to
scene, too.
crush them. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, with the bed spinner, with the hallway.
That's a hell of an alarm clock.
Who built this house?
She's like,
Who built this place? Why?
that's a great line. He says, the bed spins. What the hell are you doing? That wasn't me. It was the bed.
Okay. I'm laughing more at you laughing about this
so
than
funny.
anything else.
She's like, oh, he's accosting me. It wasn't me. It was the bed. It's spun 3 times. How'd we stay on it? It's a miracle.
Centrifugal force.
I don't think it works that
I
way.
don't know.
They're
But-
too close to the center.
Let's rig up in the new studio. We'll rig up a bed on
try
a
it.
drill.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll
Yes.
get the drill to spin.
Not Demi Moore, though. She's getting too old. She might break a hip.
Too old. All right. So they end up in this, what we'll call the ID room.
Oh, that was hilarious, too.
There's just thousands of IDs all over the place. And you start to realize how long they've been doing this for
Yes.
and how many people they've killed.
Demi almost dies there, but she gets rescued.
Yes.
Yeah.
They
Yes. Jimmy
Have-
Hoffa.
Yeah, we found
Jimmy
out where
Hoffa?
Hoffa,
Know where
yeah,
Hoffa is.
We know where he is.
a whole swim team,
Bunch of Nazis.
Nazis.
rocket scientists.
Yep.
But how
Crazy.
amazing was the set? This sounds really stupid, but how amazing was the set design for that?
No,
it
that's
was
again.
great.
I have no problem
All
with,
of it.
with the crew in general. Did great work here. That was great.
Yep.
The amount of detail was just amazing.
But these people are serial killers.
These people are the
Some of them.
system.
Not all of them were. He killed bankers, too.
They came in the Reeve. I mean, that's
Yeah, they came
There's a
under his
difference between
jurisdiction.
like handing out justice and being a justice of the peace and all
Well-
that. And then there's capturing and murdering everyone who comes through your town, it seems
Well,
like.
we learned later that there may have been a reason for that.
Oh?
The end of the
Oh, that's
movie.
right. That's true. I mean, that's true. All right, so just to keep the ball rolling here, they end up coming down this slide. I'm not even going to get...
That slide would be awesome as an actor, wouldn't you think?
Oh,
Be super
that's
fun.
like, those are the fun days on set,
fun.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I have to sit here and talk to Chevy Chase so I can go down a slide. Demi Moore probably thought it was the greatest day of the whole shoot.
Yeah, she's like, I got separated from
I
him.
got
finally.
separated from him.
I can act without him being around for a
Well, that
little
was
bit.
a stipulation. She said the slide scene, it's got to go two ways.
gotta go.
We're not going down the same slide.
Either we get separated for the rest of the movie or I'm out of here. He ends up in a pile of bones outside or within the wall
yeah.
of the judge's bedroom. And she ends up literally getting shot outside into the junkyard.
Right.
And what follows is yet another disgusting scene that is not in any way funny or purposeful.
You're just supposed to know he's super gross.
Which
Yeah.
one? Because it splits like the slide.
Yeah. So what happens is
Two disgusting
Chevy
scenes.
Chase is in the wall. And the judge comes into his bedroom, and Chevy can see him through a gigantic
Yeah, I
peephole.
was going to say, the judge probably could have seen him there.
100 or heard him rolling around on the bones.
Bones.
And the judge starts to get ready for bed. And so the first thing he does is he goes over there and he takes his nose, his hair off.
His
thank
hair
you.
off, yeah.
Which he's got like a cone head. And then he takes his nose off of his
and
face.
the top lip, too.
The top of his lip.
That was the gross part.
So you can see his teeth and his bone.
Amazing
essentially.
makeup.
That looked great.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wouldn't have been disgusting if it hadn't looked great. So it was very, very gross. Then he takes his leg off and he gets into bed. Chevy eventually then sneaks through the hole, which we find out is even more
An even
gigantic.
bigger hole. Yeah.
Just bones
With
falling
just
in the
bones,
bedroom.
like
Falling
femurs,
in
like
there.
only leg bones. People with no torsos fell down this hole.
But the way he gets out is there's another arrest. Or,
Yeah.
well, we're
Yeah,
going to get
go
to that
down.
in a
Yeah.
second.
So the judge
yeah.
leaves, and so Chevy can get out.
Well, he doesn't leave because they have a fight in
do
the
they?
bedroom.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, he comes
he goes
back.
down and
He
comes
goes
back.
down because there was...
So before we get to Digital Underground, let's stick with what happens in the bedroom.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So the judge leaves because there's another arrest and he comes back. But ultimately, the last thing that happens in this bedroom is there's a fight between Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, where the whole, the big set piece of this fight is a bedpan full of piss.
That's gross.
He chuckles immediately.
That was
Well, he went with the bedpan scrambler move.
pretty good fight otherwise.
Right.
He's like, I'm going to stick you like a salt. You're going to look like a salt shaker after I'm done with you.
Right. I've got to feel like if you can't beat up a 106-year-old man
He's spry for an old guy.
with a fake leg, what are you doing?
Well, you know, when you're a financial
Banker.
publisher in New York, you're probably
Right.
a little soft.
And he runs out of the room, and John Candy, well, not John Candy, but Aldona or whatever her name
Yeah.
is there because she's, again, the spawn of Satan. So she's omnipresent.
She's
okay.
infatuated with him.
But she's omnipresent. She's everywhere.
everywhere.
Anytime anybody almost gets away from anything, there she is.
Well, she probably heard her grandpa fighting.
Right. But a minute before this, which we're going to get to right now, she's out in the junkyard with Debbie Moore.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to this, and now she's here. Like, she's just always there.
She is everywhere, yeah.
Wherever she's supposed to be. So while that's all going on, Demi Moore is now in the junkyard. Okay. And she's running, trying to figure out a way to get out. And she hears, or rather, she finds the BMW,
Right.
the front end of it, and
Been
she's like,
stripped down. Yeah.
Yep.
it's been chopped up into pieces. She goes and she tries to start it because there's still a chassis and wheels and stuff. Doesn't go. And she hears these voices. Now, there's a reason y'all are chuckling because you know what's about to come. But please explain to me
I don't understand.
how, why,
Yeah.
what.
I'd agree with you on that. That's weird.
Centuries of
I
inbreeding.
know.
Yeah, maybe that's what they're alluding to.
They were too fat to finish high school. That's what.
They're not allowed in the house.
They're two gigantic babies.
Yes.
Yep.
But they're adults, but they're babies.
I know. Why are they wearing diapers? They could put on clothes. I don't understand
Yeah.
that part either.
It gets hot out there near the
I
forge.
guess that's true.
They're not just wearing diapers. They look like babies.
Yes, and their hair's got a little cupid.
They got the
little
baby hair on
yeah.
top, but they're 6'5".
Huge, and their bellies are huge and wobbly. And they
Yeah.
have 3 breasts.
Maybe it's like
Oh, layers, I should say.
maybe it's that
How?
reverse Benjamin Button syndrome.
It was the most random thing. It didn't make any sense at all. It was
Yeah,
again,
that part is weird.
It was just how gross can we be?
I know. And it was Dan Aykroyd playing that.
Bobo.
One of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobo.
Bobo.
Yeah.
There's Bobo and Lil Debil, and he played Bobo, and he didn't want to play. I feel like the guy that he was supposed to do that couldn't do it, and so he ended up having to do that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm doing my taxes that day.
You want me to do what? Oh, I'm going to pass, dog. I got something else going on.
I wonder. So she tries to get away. These babies are extremely fast.
For being 6'5",
For being 6'5".
450-pound
Well,
babies.
linemen are pretty quick.
The
Valkenheiser football.
Yeah.
the John Candy shows up. There's Aldona, omnipresent.
Yeah.
Is going to throw her into this pit of fire.
Yes.
Okay. And they're like, no, the babies save her life, right? We want it. Let us play with her.
Right.
Puts her down. I wonder, while Demi Moore's playing this scene with these 2 giant 6-foot babies and John Candy and drag, if she thought to herself, this is going to be a hit.
It's like, I'm gonna win an Oscar for this.
Well, she did do a little bit of the baby talk to him.
This is the greatest thing.
She's like, I got to lean into this role now, baby. This is where it's going. I'm going to have to really give.
They separated me from Chevy Chase. I gotta pick it up a little bit here.
You want the giant babies, or do you want to be with Chevy Chase?
I'll
There's
take
a
the
reason they
giant
call
baby.
it Holly Weird.
It's the giant babies. All right. Now, I'll get to what you were saying before, while those 2 scenes are going on, when they were split up, Digital Underground randomly shows up.
Yes.
They've been arrested. Okay?
Speeders.
For
They
those
were
of
the
you who
speeders.
don't know who Digital Underground is, have you ever heard the Humpty Dance?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's Digital Underground. Digital Underground show up and they're dragged before the court. And who is part of Digital Underground?
Well, Tupac.
That's
Tupac.
right. I'm like, yo,
Money
Tupac
B.
is in this movie.
Shock G.
Shock G. Humpty
That's what I'm
Hump.
saying. Humpty
Weird
Hump.
nose.
If you'd have told me, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You got Dan Aykroyd playing a giant 6'5" baby in a movie with John Candy and drag, and Tupac is in it. No one would believe you.
That's a recipe for an awesome movie,
Right,
isn't it?
Have you seen the music video for Same Song?
Right.
No.
It's even better.
Is it?
It's got Dan Aykroyd set up like Boys in the Hood. He's dressed like Boys in the Hood for it, part of it.
I got to see it.
It's.
You got it.
I'll show you afterwards.
Show me after,
It is
please.
good.
Please.
But hey, he had to, he was verifying they were who they said they were, and they weren't drugs dealers or anything. And so,
Right.
go get your instruments.
Apparently, he
Your
loves
real
musicians.
instrument.
Yeah.
And he's playing the
He
organ
jammed
with
out on
them.
the organ
Yeah.
with him, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny that they picked the Humpty Hump guy with the fake nose because he had the fake nose too.
Yeah.
That was a nice.
Right. I never thought we'd get a musical number between Dan Aykroyd
Yeah.
with a penis nose
Yeah.
and Tupac
Yeah.
Shakur. Just the collaboration we needed, but not one I thought we'd ever get.
It gets. I will say from the big babies to the underground, it gets a little bit like, all right,
What are we
this is
doing
a little
here?
Crazy. This is going a little crazy.
This was your threshold?
This is the point where
Now?
I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna accept what we're dealing with, what we got, and I mean it was good music.
That's what he took. He was there for the
Yeah,
babies.
Yeah.
Charles was ready for the babies.
He's all in.
It was
But
a
when
little-
Digital
yeah, it was
Underground
just a
showed
little
up,
bit
he's like,
what?
come on.
I don't
now.
know if we can go through these things.
He pulled a Clint Bush once Digital Underground
I wanna
showed up.
see-
He's like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
What I want to see is apparently because he had this makake must have taken forever, right? In these
Oh, I'm
outfits,
sure.
he had to direct looking like some of these,
Oh,
like
sure.
the babies or the judge. I just would love to see some background footage of him giving direction in the giant baby outfit,
Oh my gosh, could you imagine?
especially to
Yeah.
like the
You know what?
Digital Underground, right?
What if he
Who-
did the voice too?
If we would have had Jean-Claude Van Damme, we would have gotten that exactly.
Yes.
We would have gotten that shot.
Be a shot because he wouldn't have known he was on camera.
The reason why Humpty G or Shock G always look kind of like, what is going on here is probably because he was being directed by a giant baby.
He probably-
He's like, what in the world?
He rolls in, he's in full baby costume, but he sounds like regular Dan Aykroyd.
He keeps
right?
looking
He's
over
like,
to his assistant going, you get my agent on the phone right now. What the heck is going on?
He's like, Tupac, you come over here for a second, please.
Yeah.
You know that the song.
Puts his arm around him.
The song is actually what drew me to this movie because I
really?
saw the music video on MTV back when they actually played music videos for Same Song. I sat there with a tape recorder and I held it up to the TV and recorded this song, and then I went and saw the movie.
There you go.
yeah, kids, that's what we had to do back in the day.
Yup.
There you go. You got to tape it off what you can get it.
Up, whatever
That's the
you
only
have
way you had
available.
it.
Didn't it give a little line across when it would like flicker, wouldn't it, when you did that?
I don't know.
I just thought it did that if you tried to record a TV.
Probably depends upon what you had, yeah. All right, so after this random musical performance, the judge drops all charges.
Yep, lets him go.
But gives Chevy now at this point Chevy is handcuffed up. And he gives him the choice. He says, if you want to stay, I'll let you marry my daughter, Aldona.
And you can become the Reeve.
You can become the Reeve, or it's that. So it's basically death or Aldona.
Right.
Okay. And
Give me death.
I don't know. I thought Aldona was pretty good looking. She's like a human version of Miss Piggy. And I always thought Miss Piggy was pretty sexy.
there's a line here, there's a joke, and maybe I'm just too naive to know, that went totally over my head, right? And he goes, well, sir, I couldn't possibly meet her needs. And he goes, it's like, oh, nonsense, just wear a pud collar.
Yes. I heard that again last night. It was awesome.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know. B, I don't want to know.
Yeah, that's probably the safest bet.
C, don't explain it to me. I just want to tell you guys I have no idea what the hell that means.
I don't know either.
Let the other people listening go figure that out.
Super fun fact. I will tell you after the episode about something that happened at the shoe store yesterday.
All right,
all
perfect.
right.
Perfect. All right, so ultimately the wedding happens. Okay, she comes out in her dress, John Candy and this giant drag queen wedding dress.
And Digital Underground's there to play music.
Yep.
Ta the
Witness
knot.
it.
Ta the knot.
Yeah, that's
Ta
right.
the knot. Yeah, this is his like deal with them. I'll let you off the hook if you play the music at my granddaughter's
right.
wedding, right?
Yep.
So they're there to do that. The wedding happens, but as Digital Underground is leaving, Chevy kind of freaks out. He's like,
help me, let me escape.
bring me with you, whatever, right?
And the guy's, I lived another great line. He's like, oh, don't worry, I felt that way in my wedding night too.
And
I was like earnestly given. It was a great line. And he's like, oh, it's okay.
this pisses the judge off,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who says, "Wow, you've broken my granddaughter's heart."
Yes.
He's standing on the pick and save conveyor belt, and again, just roll off of it, man. There's space to the right.
A little bit. You'd have to time that right because the bench is long and there's like a small section.
You've
I
got.
guess.
It's not fast. It's not fast moving though. You've got time to
he
roll off that
runs and
thing.
crawls on it a little bit. And
He
then
does.
Gets him.
It shoots out. Chevy Chase is now landing inside the roller
I think
coaster.
he says, does he say, what kind of new hell is this? I think he does when he lands in that thing.
the bone stripper.
The music comes on. Stripper. Yeah, it's awesome. Fire. The engines. Oh, we didn't talk about the 3 or 4 engines. And it's
Yeah, but then the bone stripper conveniently breaks.
Yeah, I thought that was convenient.
Oh, I mean,
So he's
What a
on the.
good life.
He
You
gets
never know when
dumped
the
out
belt's
of.
gonna go.
I mean, it was made out of junkyard
You
parts.
get dumped out of the roller coaster onto another conveyor belt that's taking you into the
Okay.
teeth of the bone stripper.
Another great line.
Yeah.
He's all, please God, please God, please God. And then he gets thrown out. He says, thank you, Lord. See, he's a religious man.
Okay.
He said thank you to the Lord.
Yes.
He's like the one leper that came back to Jesus when he was healed.
That's what happened.
Yes.
That was
how
his.
often do you see people acknowledge the Lord's divine intervention?
No, what happens is he'll be leading a men's Bible study
Yes.
years from now, and he'll go, "Let me tell you about the day that changed my lives.
changed my life."
Right?
Bone
My road to
stripper.
Damascus moment was
That's
crawling
right.
on a conveyor belt, being sucked into the
Yes.
bone stripper.
And it stopped right as I went through.
Blew a belt
God
as I
saved
got
me.
to the
right.
teeth.
you think he would have started it with this guy with no nose and one leg tried to serve me hot dogs?
Yes, I think that's exactly how that story should start. It should start that way. The bone stripper breaks, and then there's like, again, tonally, there's just Looney Tunes music as he's like, while he's running away from the bone stripper. Like, what is that?
And he comes to the river, to the stream, and he says, it smells like Sao Paulo. That's great. They bring that line back. It was awesome.
They do.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Well, remember, the music's there because it's a fun house.
It's not a fun house. It's the bone stripper.
For the
they got
judge, it's
the-
a fun house.
Then
Of course
they've
it's a
got
fun
the-
house.
And they've got the 4-bladed thing,
Okay.
the shuffler.
That's like saying that there's a band, like whenever you hear in the love scene the music swell, that there's a band in the closet that's like playing the music. The music wasn't there in the funhouse. It just was part of the score of the movie. was this Looney Tunes music out
Sounded
of
like it was
nowhere.
coming over because
He
they
had
showed the speakers.
Yeah, they showed the
They
speakers.
said speakers out there. Yeah.
As they pulled in, they're like,
right.
why are there
We are
speakers
tearing
playing music?
down every one of James' argument why this is a bad movie.
You're not,
Because
though.
look at how this
because
all
at the
adds
very
up.
at the very end, I have the
You have the trump card.
yes, well, to that specific argument, but I can't let it out
That's
of the bag
fine.
yet.
That's fine.
All right, so he escapes, and basically the judge goes out, and they've got Demi Moore because the babies had captured her. And he's like, you got 10 seconds to come rescue this girl, or we're going to chop her up. They've got this,
Yes.
I don't know, it looks like these like blades from
plows.
the other plow from a bulldozer or something.
Yeah.
Roto grader
Road
blades.
graders.
Yeah.
And they're going to drop them on Demi Moore and chop her into 6 pieces,
Yeah,
right?
they chopped some watermelons to test it.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, all the practical effects stuff I liked.
Yeah.
The crew, I'm sure, had a blast doing this movie.
Yes.
Those are the fun days on set, right? We're going to chop this on the watermelons. Let's go.
Right.
But instead of, well, I mean, he does get there in time, but he lights a barrel of diesel.
It took forever. Like the most like gotta be well timed. If this doesn't work, she's in trouble kind of act. And why would that work anyways? Like I would think if you startle someone, they might pull the handle accidentally.
Right?
Right.
But can you light diesel like that?
Sure.
No.
well, that was gas.
doesn't.
Not
Probably.
diesel.
It burns, but it
Because the
won't.
color of it, I mean, it was diesel.
Another
Yeah, it
great
was
line.
diesel.
Yeah.
She says, "Save yourself. Go away. Don't get help or whatever." And then as she's tied up, she says, "Forget it. Save me. Come back. I was just lying." That was great.
That was hilarious.
James is all like, yeah, it was there.
That was there.
Oh, it's so
that
funny.
was a line that happened
Come back.
in this movie.
Come back. Save me. And then he
Charles,
does.
I love that. I honestly, I'm not mad. I love that when people have different opinions on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Because there are going to be people that listen that are with you on all of
Yeah.
this and be like, I can't believe James doesn't like it.
Yeah.
So
You don't like it?
I'm not trying to convince you that
I've had
it's
a couple
bad.
of those experiences with you. Both directions, where I've liked and you've not liked, or you've liked
right.
and I've not liked.
So I'm not. I don't want you to. I don't want to bring you to my side.
No, I'm trying to win you to mine. I thought about going into law. See, this is my
Perfect.
attempt.
All right. So his barrel of diesel that he somehow miraculously lit rolls down and crashes into a bunch of other barrels, and there's this giant explosion. In the confusion, he's able to free Demi Moore at the last minute because they drop the thing.
That was super perilous. I'm like, well, I don't know if I jump on top of her because
Right.
Yeah.
it's a super dangerous spot to be.
So good for him. He shows some bravery in a moment. He didn't shrink back from, what was needed of him in the moment. And they escape up this hill, and they jump onto a train. And the Miss Purda's there with a machine gun.
Shoots him.
A
Tries to.
terrible shot apparently because she couldn't hit the Brazilian airs.
No,
Yeah.
she's a terrible shot. I mean,
couldn't hit that
I
one.
called her Wish Beverly D'Angelo because she kind of looked like her.
She's in Who's Harry Crumb?
Yeah, with John
With John
Candy.
Candy.
She might have been the most psychotic out of all of them.
She was.
I think, weren't they together? Not to get too off track, but weren't they together on like SCTV or
Yes,
something?
she was
Yeah.
the second
a lot
set.
of those people were.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. She actually did a stand-up set on the first episode of Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
Because she used to
really?
be in a comedy duo with Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Before he got
well,
SNL.
I know, like a lot of those were.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys were all tied together.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and then when she didn't get SNL with Aykroyd, because they just took him and not her, she went and wrote for SCTV where John Candy was. So that's how they all
Oh,
met
that's
each
how
other.
they. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Because Chase and Aykroyd were SNL.
We're
and
SNL guys.
Candy was in the other place. Okay.
SCTV.
That's right.
Canada version.
Speaking of that, I heard Rick Moranis was asked to play Chris,
Yeah.
which that would have been a totally different feel and
would've-
part if Rick Moranis was in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe it would have been better because, Rick Moranis wouldn't have played, because it wouldn't have been so deadpan. And I think just because Chevy Chase clearly wasn't trying is part of
Well,
why I
that's
thought none of it
possible, yeah.
worked.
Maybe.
And he probably wouldn't have airmailed all of the lines in.
I don't know how Rick Moranis would have played that character that would have worked, though.
It probably would have been a lot different.
It would have been
just
would have
like
been totally different.
yeah, like if John Candy was going to play Louis
And if you
Tully in
think-
Ghostbusters as a German immigrant, it would have been totally different.
And not to make looks be the issue of love, but I think Demi Moore and Rick Moranis trying to have chemistry together could be pretty entertaining. And
Yeah,
not
I
work.
agree. All right, so but essentially they're able to get away on the train. The next thing we see is them giving this presentation to the police on like a
Yeah,
whiteboard.
not just the police, the Attorney General.
Everybody.
General,
Yeah.
He was a rich guy. He had connections,
Guess
I'm
so.
guessing.
Oh, that's true.
So they got the whole yard drawn out on this thing. He's like, all right. And of course they sound like crazy people because
Yes.
they're rambling and only like everything out of context sounds even
And it's
crazier
nice that
than
they just gave us a tail into that, not the whole part.
Right.
Thank you.
That
yes.
was good. Yeah.
But ultimately they're able to convince I don't know, what, 700 cops
Yeah, a
to
lot of
come
cops. And like the
National
National Guard,
Guard, yeah.
too.
to Valkenheiser. The attorney general gets on the horn. They're outside the judge's house. Like, this is the attorney general. I'm like, why is the attorney general there on a
know.
raid?
Yeah, how often does that happen?
Well, why did they need them to go with?
Yeah.
And the boss from Christmas Vacation's there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Doyle Murray.
Yeah, he's
So the attorney general would kind of be involved in this based on the fact that this was government.
Do they go on raids?
Not
wouldn't
necessarily,
go on
but they're the ones that are doing the investigation into this whole matter because this is the actual court system that's corrupt.
Well,
No, I get that. I just don't know why he's there when they've all got their guns
the
out.
attorney general wouldn't go on the.
Wouldn't be the first one on the
Well,
loudspeaker to be like,
right.
come out with your hands up. This is the attorney general.
maybe we know by the end. Maybe He's
That's
like,
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Which
all
we're about to find out
we'll have to
here.
find out.
Yeah. So they call him out. They got guns trained. And like you said, I think you just said it and I missed it. I would never go back.
And I wouldn't walk up
Well,
like
they convinced
did
him to go with.
the
They
door.
said, you guys go with." And was it Chevy Chase or Demi Moore? Like, why do we need to go with?
Yeah.
We gave you everything. Just go.
I don't care what they did. I would
Right.
be like,
Yeah.
you know what? Leave him be. You don't go arrest him.
I think Chevy Chase says,
Yeah.
"I can pick him out of a lineup."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they go, and then they're like, "Oh, he's not coming out. Maybe you should go up." And they
Maybe
like
you, the
walk
civilians.
up. Yeah,
The
they walk
civilians.
up. Like it's a long ways
You
away
guys,
from
go up.
everything.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah.
Go
How
up
about the
and ring a
cops with the
doorbell.
shotguns
Yeah.
go up the
Seriously.
stairs?
Yeah, that's usually how that works.
I would also never do that.
Yeah, no.
Right.
But it
lots of-
sets up the big reveal.
No, which is why I did it. But what I'm saying is, since it's so implausible, it's ridiculous. But they did it because they needed them up there to do the turnaround.
That's
Right,
a great
right,
line
right.
too. Watch out, there's a bee's nest behind you.
Yeah. So the judge comes out and he's like, "Why are you bothering an old man?" Like trying to act all feeble and stuff.
Right.
They're like, "Yeah, your days are up, Judge."
Right.
And he goes, "Better look behind you." They spin around, and it was weird because not only are all the guns down,
all
but they're all
together.
grouped together so
was
closely.
Like,
Right? All the cops are like shoulder to shoulder.
That was weird.
they're
And they
taking
all-
an aerial picture.
Hi,
of
in unison. Hi, Judge. They're all waving. And imagine being in their shoes. You'd just be like, I'm screwed.
Yeah, yeah.
How do they have everybody from the attorney general down?
know. Well, he says the attorney general said, "Well, that's what he had." It's like, what's happening? And he says, "Well, Judge, what is the judge's name?"
Valkenheimer.
Valkenheimer cleans up our little messes and takes care of cases we can't do normally or whatever.
Yeah,
so
we
they
don't
just
we
send
don't-
people there?
Yeah,
They just send people there, or they get
it's like we don't like his methods, but he gets the job done.
yeah, gets done. He's the cleaner. He's the he's like the mob guy, the enforcer.
The cleaner.
Cleans all the messes up for him.
That was interesting that happened. I didn't hate that twist. I thought that was
That was
cool.
a good twist, yeah.
For sure.
But what happens next is
Completely ridiculous?
kind of convenient way to
So,
end the movie.
Yeah.
the fact that all of a sudden, at this very exact moment, there's a giant underground explosion.
Yeah, the place finally burns down.
It
falls
only
into the pit.
When they cut about 20 minutes out of the movie, probably to get to that
Yeah.
point, there's probably
There's
something
probably
leading
some
up to
more
that
going
point.
on there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I mean, a lot of trucks and cars came in. Maybe it was just too much for his old estate to handle.
it gives them the opportunity, Demi Moore and Chevy Chase, to run away, and they find this BMW that magically works now.
Well, he's got a
Well,
kill switch.
He's got a kill switch on it.
What's a kill switch?
Fuel cut off.
Yeah.
So you can't steal it.
So,
guess.
okay. So
That's why
I
she
thought
couldn't
that's
start
why
it.
she couldn't start it, but he can. Okay, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But you, as a Beamer owner,
I don't have a kill switch. No, I don't. It sometimes doesn't want to start.
you
but
should get one. You should get one installed.
It's got an intermittent kill
it's
switch.
got its own mind on that one, but
I just thought that was really bad writing. I'm like, oh, now it works
No,
because they have to get away.
I thought we've been watching the first two of the Back to the Futures, and Biff had something like that where he was the only one that could start the car, and that was an important plot point because old Biff could start it.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, but regardless, they get away on the stripped out
I love the
BMW.
license plate still on the back too.
Yeah.
There's no trunk or anything, but the license
That
plate just
license
sitting
plate's
there.
still there.
And famously, they really struggled to write an ending to this movie.
I like the word napmare too, by the way.
And
He's laying
Yeah.
on the couch and she says,
Oh, a
"Wake up, you
napmare.
have a napmare."
Natmare, yeah.
That's good.
So we see John Candy. He's in Rio now with
Yeah.
the Brazilianaires.
Dennis.
Dennis
Good for him.
is
Yeah,
dating
seriously.
Ronaldo. Yeah, no, that was fine with that. Like, that was a cool wrap up.
Fausto.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what happens to them. I asked my wife before that. I'm like, what happened to them? Did they get John Candy, let him go, or what?
Yeah, you let him go at the river.
Yeah.
Now he's the head of
Sewage.
security for them.
Yeah.
And you saw him packing later. He was packing up all his stuff.
Oh, I
Yeah,
missed
he's
that.
packing his room
I
up.
missed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So that's the ending for them. That was fine. Now we cut to Demi Moore and Chevy Chase, and they're in a hotel or something, a motel. I don't know. somewhere. Condo. He's on the couch having a napmare. He wakes up and he sees the news he's like, oh, and we're here with one of the survivors from the explosion. And he starts to freak out, and there's the judge. He turns around and he's like, we're coming to see my old grandson.
Yes.
And he's got his ID.
I got somewhere to stay.
And his nose looked like a penis there, too. I know.
Yes. And this is my argument for the Looney Tunes thing.
Yes.
Because right after this, he just jumps Bugs Bunnies himself through the
How
wall
else are you going to end this movie?
to where there's like the outline of his body.
Yeah, I hated that.
And the music. The same music from when he got off the roller coaster. That wasn't coming through the speakers.
So it reminds me a little bit of the end of like Blazing Saddles, right? And some of these other, what was that, 70s they were doing this? And some Peter Sellers movies where they just end ridiculously, right?
Yes.
They just have to end the movie, and so they do something stupid. At least that sort of fit with the fear factor.
Sure.
But my favorite part of that whole scene is the TV reporter standing in the oil.
Yeah.
As she's giving the report. I'm like, that is such. I'm like, even back in '90s, people making fun of news reporters, like in the hurricanes. You don't have to be in a hurricane to let me know there's a hurricane. Why are you
for
standing?
sure.
You don't have to be standing in the oil to let me know there's
their
oil.
hair is sideways.
Yes.
It's hot because there's fires burning under the ground. So
I thought that was so funny. She climbs out of there
boiling
and
her
talk
skin
to him.
off.
500,000 barrels of oil found.
That's right. Now he's rich.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank goodness the movie's over. Let's give this movie some awards.
Yes.
Participating.
Yes, awards.
We actually don't have to give this movie awards.
Why?
Do you know why? Because it got awards.
It got a lot of awards.
Oh, did
The
it?
movie won the worst picture at the Hastings Bad Cinema Society's 14th Stinkers Bad Movie Award in 1991.
I feel vindicated. Thank you.
And I think it got nominated. John Candy got nominated for Razzies that year as Best Supporting Actress because of his drag play or drag character.
Well, he was phenomenal.
So-
on this as Eldona.
So see, we don't need to do that part today.
We still have to give it awards. But I'm happy to know that there are sensible people out there. Participating along with us today from Patreon is Keith Bentel. He's going to be submitting his awards for
Thanks,
each
Keith.
of these.
Hi, Keith Bentel.
We're excited.
The Will Patton Award for Intensity is where we always start. So we got to talk about the actor that, even though the movie was insane, they were going for it 110% and doing their part with seriousness and intensity and really going after it. So who do you guys got as your Will Patton Award winner?
I've got Dan Aykroyd as Judge Dick Nose. He was over the top, but he went for it.
He went all in.
He went all in on it.
In two characters.
Intense.
He did.
Two characters he went. And let's just admit he went all in as a director on this movie, too. I mean, he didn't
And a
spare
writer.
anything.
He
and a writer.
was all
There you
in.
go. There you go. Who do you got?
I got Dan Aykroyd, too.
Dan Aykroyd as well.
He was so intense. I mean, he did that role.
All right. Who you got, Mel?
I wanted to go with Dan Aykroyd,
Okay.
so I'm just going to go with Dan Aykroyd at this point.
All right.
I don't know.
With an honorable mention to Miss Purda.
Really?
All right. So Miss Purda, whose
Okay.
I picked actually as well, was Valerie Bromfield.
Really?
Was that who you actually had and you just changed it?
No, I wanted to go with Dan Aykroyd in the first place because I got JP.
All right.
But
Cool.
She was just at 11.
She was.
She was.
Really?
I thought she was the most psychotic of the whole bunch.
She was I
didn't
found her
think she
annoying
played
as
that at
hell,
all.
but she was
dead
on it,
serious
yeah.
the whole time.
Yep.
You guys are watching different Miss Purda than I was.
That's all right.
Maybe it's because I never said her name.
So
Oh, yeah, I was looking at the wrong one. Oh, she was Miss
That's
Purda.
the only way.
Keith actually went. So it's going to go to Dan Aykroyd. He will win the award. But Keith actually went with Taylor Negron, Pinky. That was the guy. That was the Brazilianaire. The guy.
Oh,
He
Fausto.
was very good, too. I mean,
one half of the
I
telenovela.
both of them
Isn't that
played
who that is?
pretty funny and pretty good.
I don't remember.
I don't know.
Let me.
Yeah, that's him. That's him.
Was it him?
Yeah.
Yeah, Taylor
the movie.
Negron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, he just basically said about him. He said could have given it to either him. He almost gave it to Dan, but he thought the guy was dialed up to 100, so he gave it to him. So, but Dan Aykroyd ultimately will win the Will Patton Award for intensity. Next one we do is the Michael Dudikoff Trash Can Full of Dirt Award, given to the worst actor in the film, the one that displayed the acting range of a trash can full of dirt. So we'll go around this time. This time we'll go this way. Mel, who do you have as your trash can winner?
I know Diane. Diane, full stop. Demi Moore, I mean,
Moore,
she wasn't the absolute worst ever, but she just could have been replaced by anybody.
Okay. And you know what, Keith, I think, let me just check. Keith also went with Demi Moore. He said, as much as I think Chevy was phoning it in, and he was, Demi was trying, and it was terrible. Anyone else would have been better. The only good part of her character was the sweet jumper that she had on that never seemed to take much damage. The armor rating on that jumper was like 100.
It was a little dirty. My wife commented on that.
Bob would approve.
Yeah, for sure. So we got 2 for Demi.
I'm going to go, I have 2.
Okay.
I actually had Miss Perda.
Okay,
But I'm going to actually go with Peter Aykroyd as a doorman. He was terrible.
Oh, poor
in that
Peter.
role. It was like he's looking at it going, I'm never on this side of the camera. I don't know what to do. And like he acted like he was waiting for the line Chevy Chase was saying before he would say his.
Oh, for sure.
He was bad.
It was bad. Who do you got, Ryan?
I've got Dan Aykroyd as Bobo.
As Bobo.
Bobo.
So you got him as the Will Patton winner, but as the judge, as Bobo.
Nice.
I can understand Demi Moore though
Yeah.
too. I mean,
I thought Demi was all right. The jumper could have clouded me.
Well, we know who you picked.
Chevy Chase.
yeah.
Look, and my whole notes is literally 2 words. He sucked.
But see, that's the genius with Chevy Chase.
It's not though. I've seen genius movies with Chevy Chase where he's trying and he's still deadpan. This was another level of crappy from him. This is like he rolled out of bed and he said, you know what, today I'm just going to see what's the crappiest I could do and still collect a paycheck. And he was like almost like he challenged himself to be worse than he's ever been.
Obviously, you've never watched Community.
I've watched, at this point, Community hadn't happened yet.
No, I know.
He discovered, honestly, it's a miracle and it's an accomplishment. He discovered a new level of suck for an actor to get to in this movie. It's really impressive. Honestly, it is.
I feel though that you're making him the trash can based on his work, not on this movie.
No, I love Chevy Chase.
But that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And this was his worst work. But
Yeah.
in the film, I don't think he was a trash can.
Oh, he was terrible.
No, I think
Yeah.
these other people were.
Not one thing he said. He was the anti-joke. He was like a black hole where jokes went to die in this movie.
No, he didn't. He had so many good lines. That's more like it.
All right, our top 3 performers is everything we got. So
Thank you,
I
Lord.
can tell you that mine does not include Chevy Chase. But who are your top 3 performers?
You know what I've got? I just wrote them down, so I got to order them quick here. But
Sure.
I'm going to go with Chevy Chase as number 3.
Okay.
Yeah, he might have been phoning it in, but he was still. I still enjoyed him. He still played like the, kind of uppity New Yorker. I thought that was all right. For some odd reason, I had Demi Moore in here as number 2. It wasn't great by any means, but I don't know. It's just one of those things that kind of the train wreck you couldn't look away from. And then I had John Candy as Eldona as number 1, just because for me there wasn't enough John Candy as Dennis. So
Okay.
but Eldona, I think without speaking, being mute, I did a fantastic job with it.
I didn't have John Candy in my top 3 either. Not because I thought he did a bad job. They're just was one part he couldn't speak,
Right.
and in the other part he was super serious and not really funny. So I just felt like they misused him. Like, why even use John Candy at this point?
Yeah.
Unless just because you want to stick him in a dress.
As Eldona was fine, but have him do like John Candy things in the other role.
Yeah,
then.
seriously. Who you got, Charles?
Okay, my number 3, I would split between Chevy Chase and Demi Moore. I thought they were pretty on the same, and I enjoyed both of their performances. But I'm going to go with Chevy because he always makes me laugh. His lines are so great. They're great. And then John Candy. I enjoyed John Candy. I thought it was kind of cool to see him more straight guy,
Yeah,
even though he's in drag. But
was a straight guy in drag.
Played the straight man kind of. And I thought, he, like you said, at the bench when they first, and the way he does his job, he acts. It was good. And then Dan Aykroyd without him, you can't have this movie.
That's true.
And he delivered what he wanted.
So it was his fault
for the most part. Fault or his genius or thank you, however you want to go with that.
Without him, we wouldn't have this movie. It's a dangerous statement that could go one of 2 ways. Mel, who you got?
All right, number 3, Chris. I love the Chevy Chase delivery, and there's a fine line between phoning it in and Chevy Chase himself. And if you can't tell the difference, he's doing his job.
But you can 100% tell the difference.
So number 2, I actually went with Dennis because Dennis, I saw the little things with Dennis that, this guy was tired of his job. He was doing the right thing. He was trying to keep the peace. He was trying to be a good police officer, and he stuck to the law. And after that, the whole system kind of failed him. He walked away. So I think the character was quite impressive, well written, and well acted by John Candy. And then number 1, I went with Dan Aykroyd, JP.
Okay.
I mean, it's just
My list.
he was
like this
above
guy.
and beyond, and everything was over the top. But again, I also like the JP character because even with his history of being the psycho murderer and all that, or the using the executions, he was still a reasonable person.
What did you just say?
Reasonable. I don't know about that.
He had some
What?
values that he stuck to.
Yeah, he had some weird values.
He was
He
still
had-
a
he had some
reasonable.
principles.
Did you just say that J.P. Valkenheimer, Alvin Valkenheimer, is a reasonable person?
Yeah.
He had principles he stuck to.
principles.
That's about
That
it.
is
Yeah.
true.
But sure, he's principled.
He had his
Hitler
own-
was principled.
He had his own
Whoa,
moral
whoa, whoa,
code
whoa.
for sure.
He had his own set of principles.
People take context.
I'm trying to find the one quote.
That's,
If I had a flip flop right now, it would be fired across. It'd be the second time ever we get one fired. Listeners,
Well, he didn't like cussing in his courtroom.
however you feel about this movie, I don't care if you like it, you love it, or you hate it. And there'll be the range of opinions. But is there anyone out there that would also qualify him as a reasonable person besides Mel Vandy? I want to hear from you. Send us an email because I need you to connect people. I want to connect you with other like-minded individuals.
I'll go
We'll
one
see
further.
If we'll start the cult of Valkenheimer right over here. Yes.
I'll go one further. Since Dan Aykroyd is into the weird stuff, and I'd say we're a little weird.
Yeah.
If Dan, if you're listening,
Oh, yeah, nice.
first of all, this I love Nothing But Trouble. It was a great film. You did awesome. So if somebody can get him that message, that'd be great.
We'd appreciate it.
and give him the email address too. Have him reach out.
Tell Dan we love him.
Here's
Not for
his-
this, but for
look,
other
he-
reasons.
And Dan may be listening to the show. We
He
never
might
know.
be. He might be. Here's an example of his reasonableness.
Yeah.
He cares about, even though he's murdering. He says, "I'm of the school that believes the last 30 seconds of a person's life ought to have a little zip to it." As he's sending them down the bone crusher.
Yeah, sounds like a reasonable
There you
person
go.
to me.
Look at that. He wants them to enjoy their last
All right.
30
Well,
seconds in the bone
he did
stripper.
serve dinner. I mean,
Here's-
that is.
He gave him dinner. He didn't
did.
kill him immediately.
Here's Keith's top 3. Number 3, Keith gave to Tupac
Tupac, yeah.
for his sweet vocals. Number 2, he gave to John Candy. He said, I always loved John. He was good at Dennis, showing that he wanted to run things properly, kind of like what Jay was saying here. Also, he seemed to disappear from the movie, but he was the one helping Chevy and Demi try to escape again. Issues with the edits, but apparently that stuff was on the cutting room floor. As far as like doors randomly opening and things like that. But I loved his portrayal of Aldona. His physical acting was great, so he gives John Candy the number 2. Number 1, he gives to Dan Aykroyd. He says, this is Dan's baby, and it showed, sadly, not only in good ways, but bad as well. But he really brought it. Energy was high. His antics as the old man were fun because he gets a lot of crap for this movie, but I put a lot of that on Chevy Chase. Thank you, Keith. The studio and the cuts. Sounds like Chevy was a piece of garbage on set, and the studio made Dan put him in the lead. So there you go. My top 3, I had 2 and 3. I had as the Brazilianaires, Bertilla and Taylor.
They were fun.
Taylor Negron and Bertilla Damas. I was like, more of them, please. And number 1, I had Demi Moore, which I know almost all of you.
You missed where
panned
she said the thing too.
her,
and
and she said that I still had her number 1. And here's the thing. Nobody gave a good performance in this movie to me. Maybe John Candy as Dennis was good, but not funny. But for a comedy, that's the only reason I was like, not a good thing. But I get what you're saying about the way he played. I thought that was good. Demi was, as much as Chevy was phoning it in, Demi was actually trying. And there's so many scenes, whether it was her on the chopping block or when she's playing cards with the babies, where you could tell she's she knows, I think this is a pile of garbage,
Right.
but you can see that she's actually trying to elevate it and make it better. And I don't know that she succeeded in that, but I appreciated the effort. That's why I gave Demi Moore number 1.
And I think you see that too in the difference of where Chevy Chase and Demi Moore were at in their career. She's still trying to make her way up, right?
Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, this is a pile of hot garbage, but I'm going to give it my all just to show I don't phone it in sort of thing. And
Exactly.
he had already made some stuff by then. He's like, I'll get more roles.
Now, in trying to think about where to stick Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie,
Yes.
and I thought to myself,
Yes.
because this was the first one I looked at, I go, maybe Arnold doesn't make it better. Like, that's how bad it is. But then I thought, what if Arnold had been the main character, or the Baldwin part that gets pulled over, or just another random arrest?
Part. He could have been Dennis. He could have been the judge.
Right, but here's why I wanted him to be one of the people that was arrested, because I thought one of the funniest bits, because you know how the Bonestripper broke really conveniently? What if it tries to chew up Arnold Schwarzenegger and it breaks the Bonestripper? And that's the reason that Chevy gets away.
That would work.
That would be way funnier.
Yeah.
But what about Arnold as a baby?
As one of the yes. Dan Aykroyd
Completely
and
out
Arnold.
of character
Dan Aykroyd
type for
and
him. He's all
Arnold as
fat
a
and
baby.
fluffy.
and get her, she's running away.
Yeah.
We're not allowed in the house.
Not allowed in the house. I think he could have been a baby.
He would have been great as a baby.
He would have been great as one of the babies. Yep. Yeah.
Just a jacked baby.
Jack baby.
Awesome.
I wonder if he could pull off the judge.
You think so?
I think so.
I don't know if the accent would make it a little too 1940s.
Well, he looks like a Valkenheimer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ultimately, guys, we got to land somewhere on this movie. We have to decide whether it's a bad movie that's just bad, if it's a good movie, full stop, without any qualifiers, or if it's objectively bad as a measure of a film, but you liked it, so subjectively it's good. So that's a bad movie that rules. Where do you guys land ultimately on Nothing But Trouble?
All right. So this movie is like, you're going out on your porch. Some teenager left a flaming pile of dog crap on your porch.
So far, I agree.
You step in it. But you don't care that you stepped in it because there's just so much other massive train wreck going on across a street that you're so fixated on that. It's a bad movie that rules to me.
All right.
And if you don't agree, I know, James, it doesn't sound like you agree. I want you to do something for me.
All right.
Try it with butter. It'll make it better. Everything will change if you try it with butter.
Okay. All right. I respect that take. Charles?
All right. So I think this movie got lost in what it was supposed to be. I think it would have been a better movie had it been more of an actual like Cabin in the Woods type thing where it's pretty graphic and violent. Like if there had been actual blood and gore. If Demi Moore had been killed in the hallway,
Yeah.
it would have put some real anxiety into the film. Like, this is really serious.
That sounds like a much better version.
Yes. That being said, I think it's a good movie. I enjoyed it very much.
Objectively good?
Objectively
movie?
good. Well, we talked about the writing throughout. It works as a writing piece. It's a weird movie, but it's in the genre of stuff like, probably not Blazing Saddles, but in the goofiness side of things, it's a little bit like that. It's in the genre of like the Peter Sellers, The Party, and these other films that are like off the wall, but they're entertaining. They keep you going. Mm-hmm. The characters are consistent. I think it's a good movie. I enjoy it.
Objectively. As a film.
I think it was made well, shot well. The scenery is amazing. The makeup's impressive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mel?
Dan, we love you. But I got to go out on a limb here. This is a good movie.
All right.
The reason this movie is
Guys.
good. The reason this movie is good. It was good the first time I saw it.
What is happening?
As I look back, I've seen this movie probably 20, 30 times over the years.
I haven't watched it that much, but I've watched it.
Well, and not like intentionally.
Right,
It's just
right.
when it's on, it's on. But you know what? I objectively watched it last night again. And I started noticing the little things. And it gave more of a credit to Dan Aykroyd and what his vision was for this, his execution of it. Doing all of this himself, he unfortunately was his own hobble. And I think if somebody would have held him back a little bit, it would have been even better.
I'd agree.
I think objective doesn't mean what you guys think it means. I think.
I can't argue, okay, subjectivity. Like, if you enjoy the movie, you enjoy the movie. So,
Right.
But to say that it's objectively good is an arguable point.
Well, from a filmmaking perspective,
Okay.
I don't think there's.
This is the movie you make people watch like as a punishment.
No.
This is not just a bad movie, full stop. It's one of the worst movies ever made.
No, it can't be because it's not badly made. You may not like it because of the choices that are made about the movie, but as far as actual technical movie making, and I know nothing about that, it's a good movie.
It's not. The studio murdered this movie. So whether or not like the movie
And it still survived.
It didn't though. There's the movie that's written, the movie that's shot, and the movie that's put out. And so Dan Aykroyd might have written and shot a totally different movie than this, but it's the movie that we got. And so somewhere between the one that he shot and the one that was released, the studio came in like with baseball bats with the printer and Office Space and just went to town on this thing.
But they didn't ruin it because it was.
Of course, they ruined it.
It was a good enough movie to begin with that they couldn't ruin it.
What they did is they probably did us a favor and cut it down to an hour and a half.
That's probably true. That's probably true. But most movies probably.
I appreciated that about it.
Yeah. I mean, you talk a lot about how movies are shot. Like the last movie, what was the one where you talked about how the camera, Van Damme's movie, everything was
The
poorly
Quest.
shot, right?
Oh yeah, no, that's true.
Objectively bad. You can't say that about this movie. The scenes were shot well, right? The story is coherent. It works.
I don't know if the story's coherent, but it's shot well. The sets are good. The set design is incredible.
They had the right actors, whether you think they put it all in.
The writing was decent.
The writing was decent.
You couldn't turn it off.
No.
The writing doesn't even rise to decent.
It does, because all those things fit. Everything goes together. It's not like...
We talk about writing from a structural standpoint.
Competent.
Yeah.
Competent.
It's competently
But
written.
the dialogue is terrible.
I love the dialogue. It's hilarious.
I know this is where we
He
diverge.
talks about his divorce. How long were you divorced? 4 years ago.
I just
How long
got
did it
over
take
it
you
2
to
weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. That's hilarious. Come on. That's great.
did chuckle
and it's
at that
so
one.
low cut. Like, it's so under the... You don't even get it unless you're willing to listen and see.
It could be me. I fully will admit it could be me. So
What about Keith?
well, I'd like to know. Keith said, "Bad movie that rules."
Yeah.
He
All
said-
right.
So
Okay.
he says it's terrible objectively, but I continue to watch it even with its shortcomings. So that's where Keith landed on this one. So.
I think it really depends on how you look at it, though. If it was intended to be a comedy, which it was not, if you look at the original.
But I don't have the original to view. I have to go off of this.
You can't look at it as a comedy. You can look at it as this is a really weird film. If you look at it, it's just weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's a good movie, full stop.
Yeah.
There's
these categories of movies that are like that.
I have to look at it as a comedy because that's the movie they made and released.
Well, I think it's...
Like I said, the studio destroyed it into there is what it was supposed to be, which I don't know. I'll give Aykroyd the benefit of the doubt as somebody that's made incredible pieces of, art, that maybe what he had shot or planned was better than this. But I can't judge that movie that doesn't exist.
I think it's a good movie, as is.
See, I'd love to see the director's cut.
I think it could have been even better if it was made today. It would have had the gore, and it would have been more satirical.
I've no doubt that a better
comedy horror genre.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they really wanted that PG-13. They didn't want an R movie.
The studio did.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. They bear the weight. I mean, Dan has his own weight to bear for the way the movie turned out, but they bear a lot of it as well.
Literally having to wear all the makeup and costumes.
Yeah.
Good
Well,
movie.
look,
I always love it when we fluster James.
We'll
It's
leave
great.
it in your hands. I love disagreements. It makes the show better than if we're all just like, we all agree, you all agree.
Can we
Yes?
point out though
Good.
that
That's
of the
boring.
5 of us who've reviewed this movie, all of them have been on the positive side.
Oh, the
You're
5 of
only
us?
one.
Oh, Keith?
You're the only one that
You mean
bad
Keith
movie.
that it's terrible, but I continue to watch it?
Bad movie that
Bad
rules.
movie that rules.
Movie that rules.
Rules,
Yeah.
good,
I
good,
won't-
rules.
Hold on, but I won't argue the rules part of it. Like I said, that's fine. It's the objectively good part of it that I was not ready to have an argument about. I was like, all right, you like it? That's cool. I think it's trash.
Tell you what,
You know what I mean?
If you out there do not like this film and have any reason to call it garbage, I'll gladly have a discussion with anybody.
Please email the show. I'd love to hear when especially when it's so split like this. We get Keith and Ryan who got a leg in each side, bad and good. We got two people that think it's legitimately objectively
Oscar
good,
worthy.
and then me who thinks
Not
it's
Oscar
like
worthy.
somewhere in the seventh ring of hell. They're going to show this movie to people.
Well, I think that
for
could be
eternity.
true too, but just because it's not bad, it's good doesn't mean it wouldn't have some things that the devil might want to show people.
Get some ideas.
I want to know where you guys are at on this. So email the show. This show is trash@gmail.com.
American Beauty was a good movie that I never want to watch again.
Okay.
Pearl Harbor. You know, they say it's a good movie, but I absolutely hated it.
Yeah, it was a bad movie.
Yeah, that's a terrible movie.
Titanic is supposed to be this great movie, but I absolutely hated it. It sucked.
All right, we're going to get out of here before these guys ruin their credibility any further. Thank you guys for joining the show and for listening. On behalf of Ryan Mueller, Charles Hewitt, and Mel Vandy, I'm James Hauser. Thank you for listening.
Doesn't make you any less wrong.